Okay. Damn. Actually, pretty badass.
Wait.
Wait.
I just get back to my computer. Somebody said, so the 90-day pause was real? Wait, this isn't... Is that actually happening?
I don't want to have to pay for YouTube.
The fuck is this? Hold on. Based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world's markets, I am hereby raising the tariff charge to China by the United States of America to 125%, effective immediately. At some point, hopefully in the near future, China will realize that the days of ripping off the USA and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable. Conversely, and based on the fact that more than 75 countries have called representatives of the United States, including the Department of Commerce, Treasury, and the USTR, to negotiate a solution to the subjects being discussed,
Yeah, we'll see about that shit.
I've authorized a 90-day pause and a substantially lowered reciprocal tariff during this period of 10%, also effective immediately. He's got to go. I'm sorry. This is just too retarded.
I wish I knew more about the economy to say anything about that shit, but trust him.
We're done. I just want to play Factorio for like a couple weeks.
Come on.
This is retarded. This isn't. We're not even doing politics. This is like drama slop. This is a drama slop president.
Drama slop.
That Bloomberg dude. That Bloomberg guy right now is like, I told you guys, I wasn't lying. Fuck you. Oh man.
When does this warp totem? Oh, shit. The fuck? Bitches. Yeah.
Somebody said he tweeted it's a good time to buy right before this. Is that actually true?
Oh. Fuck, I don't have that immunity anymore.
This is a great time to buy DJT.
Is this an extra row?
Libs didn't listen and missed out on easy 10% gains. Oh my god.
Economy would tip into recession have been steadily growing. A lot of people, including Larry Fink of BlackRock, were saying that many company executives were telling him that the economy was already in recession. So it kind of became this default scenario that we were in recession, and it would be only a matter of time before the data backed that up.
At what point does this become market manipulation? My friend, we are so far past even pretending to care about the answer to that question.
So this is a break in that bad news story. So far this week, we've seen the bad news really turn to the bond market. Last week was all about the stock market kind of in collapse mode, and it's been a lot more fluid, volatile this week, but the bond market has really taken it on the chin this week, and there's a lot of question marks over whether this is fundamentally driven or technically driven.
I just want to point out for those who have been following the commentary of Bill Ackman
Why are angle shoots bad etiquette in poker? What is an angle shoot? I don't know what that means.
in regard to tariffs, who, as Joe reminded us just moments ago, did push for the 90-day pause to begin with, which is what Donald Trump seems to have decided here. He posts simple message on X now, just thank you. Nothing else. So I guess he likes what he's seeing here, just as risk asset investors do. But Scarlett, it's remarkable that we get this news today after we already have learned today about instances of multiple companies making decisions or having to issue guidance that is unclear or pull that guidance because of these tariffs. Delta, of course, not willing to stand by a forecast. We had Bloomberg reporting of Amazon actually pulling orders of inventories on goods coming from China. Already, this is affecting corporate behavior, even if the president has now decided that there will be a pause, at least in some instances.
Yeah, absolutely. It's difficult for any company to go out there and say very much about how they anticipate the year to shape up when they don't know what's going to happen. At the end of the day, nobody knows anything. And to give firm numbers is just inviting scrutiny and inviting people to knock your stock down when it won't come to fruition. And I think that's pretty much the case. We were speaking with a pharmaceutical analyst who was talking about how this promise by President Trump to impose tariffs on the pharmaceutical industry is, of course, meant to encourage these companies to move their manufacturing back to the U.S. But because they're...
Angle shooting is a controversial tactic often used in poker where a player attempts to bend the rules to gain an advantage. It's not explicitly cheating, but it's generally viewed as unethical or unsportsmanlike behavior. Many players in the highest point.
Behold the new strategy on Steam. The unique real-time strategy where every battle unfolds on the pages of a sketchbook.
I don't understand. Give me an example of angle shooting.
To do anything and can see how this all shakes out.
Bloomberg's Scarlett Fu in the throes of the rally. Right now, the S&P 500 up 390 points, almost 8%. Kaylee, the NASDAQ is up by more than 9%. A powerful move here. 1,455-point rally as the Commerce Secretary takes to Twitter. Scott Bessent and I, he writes, retweeting or showing a screen grab of President Trump's post on Truth Social. Sat with the president, he says, while he wrote one of the most extraordinary truth posts of his presidency. The world is ready to work with President Trump to fix global trade, he says, and China has chosen the opposite direction.
Yeah,
Interesting moment.
Oh, never mind. I'm seeing. Okay, never mind. I see. I think that angle shooting is bad etiquette, but I think that's fine. As long as you're not explicitly breaking a rule, I think you're good to go. That's how I would view it. In my personal experience playing live games, I feel like angle shooting is a thing that you do to take advantage of people that aren't paying very much attention and probably should be. Like I've seen stuff that might even be unintentional angle shooting. I don't even know if it would count. I remember one of the biggest blowups I saw. I don't even know if this would count as angle shooting. There was some guy did a big bet. They were at the river and there was a decent amount of the pot. And some guy does a big bet at the end, and then the person opposite him thinks about it for quite a while, and then finally they call. And after they call, the guy's like, "Good call, you got me." And then he kind of like, he taps the table a couple times, and the other person, you could tell they were a new player because they were very excited. Not like screaming over, you could tell, and they were like, "Oh," and they were like, "Okay." And they both sat there for a sec. And then the person that called mucked their hand. And then the other guy flipped the cards, and he had like he had nothing. And the player mucked their hand. Oh, and they called the floor over, and they argued about this for like 15 minutes. It wasn't like tens of thousands of dollars. I think it was a 1-3 game, but it was like a $700 or $800 pot. And yeah, they left after that. They got so mad. Oh my god! But I don't even know if that would be considered angle shooting, or if the other person wasn't paying attention. I've seen people do stuff like that.
Moment here for this administration.
It certainly is, and quite a split screen between what we're seeing the markets reacting to and the reception, at least.
But I would argue that the other person should have been paying attention. How are you going to muck your hand in a huge pot like that without knowing? Absolutely, yeah, I don't know. But I get it, yeah.
Majority of countries subject to reciprocal tariffs seem.
I've done I've done stuff like this too. Like if somebody raises, or if somebody bets, and then you can like toss in a chip that's too large, or something, and be like, "Oh, I just wanted to," you can fuck with that. I think I've only done that once or twice though, because it made everybody at the table really ass pain. I was like, okay. Yeah, you don't want to make people angry when you're playing live games, because if you're playing live games, you should be there to have fun anyway, right?
We now get
You're seeing what, 15 hands an hour or some bullshit. Why not?
From the administration, which is a pause, versus the escalation of what is a trade war.
Some are clearly bad
in the world.
I feel like slow rolling and stuff is cringe. Like if the hand is already over, unless you're literally just trying to get somebody to stab you.
Retaliatory tariff on the U.S. Many economists say that effectively is going to mean decoupling of this, and yet the market is seemingly looking through that right now. But when you consider the number of consumer goods that come from China, where like 80% of the share of imports on things like PC monitors, for example, comes from China.
You're supposed to say call when you do that, otherwise it's a bet. Maybe. I've seen some places treat it differently. Actually, usually if you throw in a larger chip but you don't say raise, that oh shit, that's what it is. This is scumbaggy behavior. I don't even think it's good poker, actually. Maybe it was 15 years ago you could get away with shit like this. But if somebody bets in front of me and I don't want the pot to get out of control, I know there's like a really aggressive player behind me, Usually if you just throw in a chip, if it's a higher amount than what was bet before, they won't view that as a raise. They'll just view it as a call. So if somebody bets $10 and then you toss in a green and you don't verbalize a raise, then the dealer, I believe, is supposed to just assume it's a call. But if you throw in a larger chip and then the action moves to the next player and then you let them act and then you act confused and you're like, oh, I didn't see that he or whatever, I didn't know I was calling or whatever, they won't let you bet. But sometimes that'll slow down the play of the player to your left because they're like, oh shit, this guy was about to raise. Or if he raises it, he's very strong. There's like dumb shit like that. This would probably be considered angle shooting though. I didn't do this too much because everybody just starts to hate you at the table because then people can't tell if you're fucking with them or if you legitimately don't know what's going on. So.
And that's not easily replaced necessarily, but maybe the good news on what we get from other countries is enough to carry risk appetite through for now.
Interesting to see tech taking off like this because the prospect of a $3,000 iPhone might not do a lot for Apple shares. But as the rally moves here, we want to go direct.
I'll usually, because I'm a manner player, okay, I'll usually just call my action out loud. I think verbalizing stuff is the best way to, if you want to play like, but this is probably above and beyond. This is like if you want to play like super poker, whatever poker. If action is to you, like as soon as you reach into your chip stack, then you say like call or raise, and then you like start doing your chips. Most players won't verbalize it. They'll just reach in and they'll start like shuffling or laying out chips like they're about to bet, or they'll do some autistic shit like that. But if you verbalize it, it makes it clear for everybody at least. It just depends on.
Directly to the White House. The press secretary and Treasury secretary just walked into the briefing room. This is live now. Caroline Levitt alongside Scott Bessent on Bloomberg.
Speak to that. We will continue with the tailor-made negotiations that I spoke about yesterday. In the meantime, there will.
This is the one chip rule. If you throw in one chip, it's always considered a call no matter the value of the chip. Yeah, that's true too, because if somebody pushes all in or whatever to your right, sometimes a player will just toss in a dollar because call. You toss it in just so that you're in the pot, and then it'll action will move to the next people. Yeah.
Do you know what eating cabbage can do to your heart? Cabbage is a cruciferous vegetable that resembles lettuce and can be red, purple, white, or green. But what many people don't know is that it can have a serious effect on the body's inflammatory response. Is it healthy? Here's what you need to know.
Goodbye blood pressure meds. I'm throwing them all away. Why? Because after hearing Dr. Livingood, I don't need them anymore.
I'm a doctor, and I quit. Years ago, I made a New Year's resolution for myself that I would no longer participate in what our country calls healthcare. It's actually sick care. It doesn't restore health. It just profits off of people staying sick. Like, why don't doctors tell patients that?
There will be a 90-day pause on the reciprocal tariffs as these negotiations are ongoing, and the tariff level will be brought down to a universal 10% tariff. The secretary here has been a huge part of the president's trade team, of course, and will continue to lead these negotiations moving forward to look out for the American worker, which is always President Trump's goal. So I'll kick it over to our great Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent.
The betting thing is called a string bet. If it's not more than double the initial bet, it's considered a call. A string bet is when you put chips in the past the line, and then after you put more chips past the line. That's a string bet. A string bet is not angle shooting. A string bet is strictly not allowed. I would leave a casino if they allowed that at a table. That's fishing for information in a super illegitimate way. If the bet before you was $20 and then you put in 20 and then you reach back to your stack and you take out 40 more and then you put that's a string bet. You shouldn't be allowed to do that. All your chips have to move at once, or you have to verbalize your action at least. You could say raise and then put in a 20 and then reach in and then put in more, but you can't put a chip past the line because once it's in, you've called, and then reach and then try to bet more based on how people to the left of you are reacting. That's bullshit.
Good, thank you. And we saw the successful negotiating strategy that President Trump implemented a week ago today. It has brought more than 75 countries forward to negotiate. It took great courage for him to stay the course until this moment. And what we have
Courage,
as I told everyone a week ago, they are in this very spot. Do not retaliate, and you will be rewarded. So every country in the world who wants to come and negotiate, we are willing to hear you. We're going to go down.
it's time to
for them, and China will be ready
upgrade the old house.
on escalation. Well, China, no, China.
Mexico and Canada. Mexico and Canada. Are they part of the 10%?
Yes.
Okay. Second, given then that you have the rest of the world essentially calling it, it's not China. Is this now just all about China?
Well, it's about bad actors.
China, China, China.
Is some of the very early countries.
Do you have a favorite poker pro? There was like a group of celebrity poker people that everybody used to watch back when poker was like popping on TV in like 2009. So I only know the players from like that era.
Japan's at the front of
But like my answers are going to be the same as probably everybody else's. There were like 5 or 6 or 7 that like everybody knew because they made the rounds. Obviously, I think Tom Dwan's story was super cool. This like who the fuck specializes in heads up, and the guy was like fucking 21 years old or some shit, and starts to become super fucking famous and is an amazing poker player. Obviously, Phil Ivey is a fucking legend. Helmuth was a solid good player. It's fun watching him blow up. Tony G was hilarious watching people. Daniel Negreanu is like, that's my main Zionist man. Oh, I think he follows me on Twitter because I was so pro-Israel too. Like I like all of the old guys that used to be on the, what was it, like Poker After Dark bullshit. Yeah.
South Korea, India. So we will see. And as I've repeatedly said, and President Trump has been saying it for years, China is the most imbalanced economy in the history of the modern world, and they are the biggest source of the U.S. trade problems. And indeed, they are problems for the rest of the world, because what we've seen is that as the U.S. announced the
Went the wrong way.
last week, many of those goods have already started flooding into Europe.
As you see it now, this trade war is China versus the rest of the world.
Well, I'm not calling it a trade war, but I'm saying that China has escalated, and President Trump responded very courageously to that, and we are going to work on a solution
Courageously.
with our trading partners.
Doyle Brunson. I didn't. Brunson was a cool dude. That was the one poker book that I read cover to cover. Was Brunson's Super System, and there was like it was like a way to win at poker, almost probably online for a little bit too, and then in live games for sure. But I would say, I'm not a poker pro or anything even remotely approaching that, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. I would say like after 2011-ish, 2010, 2011-ish, because poker exploded in popularity so much, the game started to become way more mathy, and playing any kind of like highly mathematically verifiable strategy became very like negative EV. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but the game changed, I think, pretty significantly. Yeah. In live games, it's different. You can still play whatever because people.
100
know
pieces of
live games
hardwood.
are fun, but online, you're not beating any stakes. Trying to act like you have to be so mathy.
Excuse me, Raquel. If I could just add to what the secretary said, many of you in the media clearly missed the art of the deal. You clearly failed to see what President Trump is doing
tell me
here.
about it.
You tried to say that the rest of the world would be moved closer to China when in fact we've seen the opposite effect. The entire world is calling the United States of America, not China, because they need our markets, they need our consumers, and they need this president in the Oval Office to talk to them. And that's exactly why more than 75 countries have called, because the United States of America is
the phone call! Give me a phone call! Phone call! I need a phone call button. I need a phone call. Ring, ring. I need a phone call button.
best place in the world to do business, and as the president has shown great courage, as the secretary has said, in choosing to retaliate against China even higher. Elena, go ahead.
Thank you, Treasury Secretary Bessent. Can you explain on the decision making on what feels like a reversal here? I mean, just these went into effect less than 15 hours ago, these tariffs. Why the pause now? What led to that?
I mean, just fuck a load of coal.
Negotiating leverage for himself, and which tariffs went into effect 15 hours ago? The ones that we have lowered went into effect a week ago. They were announced a week ago, and we've just been overwhelmed by the response from mostly our allies who want to come and negotiate in good faith. So we are expecting them to come with their best deal. As I said a week ago today, don't retaliate, hold your ground, let's see what happens. And China, they kept escalating, and now they have 125% tariffs that will be effective immediately.
Mr. Secretary, go ahead. Mr. Secretary, since we're doing this, tonight, the 90-day pause on the reciprocal tariffs, is that because of the whiplash that we've been seeing across the financial market? How much was...
Whiplash? Excuse me? Don't you mean...
No, it's because it's going to...
because it's going to be so awesome.
We've had more than 75 countries contact us, and I imagine after today there will be more. So it is just a processing problem. Each one of these solutions is going to be bespoke. It is going to take some time, and President Trump wants to be personally involved. So that's why we're getting the 90-day pause.
Clarification. Secretary, there was a video Secretary left when the Oval Office was talking about this. Can you talk about what that conversation was like and what you guys said to one another?
Look, it's all the president's decision, and the president had a level in mind.
So
to raise the China tariffs,
25.50 live?
And he had the 3
That
months,
means 25.50 cent, right?
in mind, and we were discussing the exact wording. Sorry? Of course.
It's the president's decision.
It was the president's decision. It was the president's decision to wait until today. And again, as I've said in the past, no one creates leverage for himself like President Trump.
Mr. Secretary, what does the president want to see by this, I think it's July 9th deadline to keep things paused? Is it just trade barriers coming down, or is it more than that?
Well, these are trade negotiations, but if countries want to come and offer other things, I talked about yesterday that we are thinking about a big LNG project in Alaska that South Korea, Japan, Taiwan are interested in.
The fuck is that?
A substantial portion of the offtake, but again, that is trade because it will decrease the trade deficit we have with those countries. Everything's on the table.
Raquel, go ahead. A clarification of the 10% pause. What happened to those countries who just had 10% baseline tariffs, like Brazil and others? Are they still going to have this negative pause because we're saying
Everything's on the table.
what happened to those who just had 10%?
Yeah, that's going to remain.
That's like beating someone and paying their hospital bill. Dog, it's just 10% tariffs on everybody, which is still, by the way, fucking insane. Is nowhere near as bad as what it was before, though, right? So isn't it, in a way, isn't it kind of based, liberals? Haha! Liberal tears. Anybody else enjoying their liberal tears today? I know that I am. This is called negative reinforcement, okay? This is how you teach people how to respond to things, all right? When you want to reinforce the behavior by taking away a negative stimulus, it's called negative reinforcement. So he took away the really bad tariffs, even though he left some others on, and here we are. Amazing.
Pardon? Well, I'm not sure what you mean by the word embargo.
125% tariffs, like, no, that imposed 84%. Isn't this an embargo?
Well, it's China's decision that we have a deficit with them. They sell us almost 5 times what we sell them.
Here's the problem, okay? Here's the problem. Okay, also, wait. Hold on, here's the question. Why can't Trump just tell Americans, he says they sell us so much shit, like they're raping us with their goods, with their wares. Why can't Trump just say, Americans, stop buying shit from China. Don't do it anymore. You're not allowed to. Why doesn't Trump just scold us?
So again, I think it's an own goal by China.
Secretary, signal that you're confident that you're going to be able to strike a satisfactory deal with all these 75 nations that
It signals the president cares about trade and that we want to negotiate in good faith. And as I said, each one of these is going to be a separate, bespoke negotiation. So we are confident that, having seen the other side of where this could go, and it was like I said last week, the market didn't understand. Those were maximum levels. The countries can think about those levels as they come to us to bring down their tariffs, their non-tariff trade barriers. We're going to discuss currency.
It's called negative punishment. No, reinforcement is when you are trying to get a behavior to happen more, and punishment is if you're trying to reduce a behavior. Positive or negative.
The fuck is that?
In like the psychology, is it operant conditioning? I don't remember sense. Positive and negative just has to do with whether you're introducing something or removing something. So like a positive reinforcement would be giving somebody a head pat in order to get them to do something good. A negative reinforcement would be taking away something bad in order to continue a behavior. A positive punishment would be hitting somebody to get them to stop doing something bad. And then a negative punishment would be taking away something good, like grounding somebody from the computer or whatever.
Subsidy.
Congrats on the lawsuit, King. Yeah, I'm not, I don't know if I want to, like, read all my court docs on stream or whatever, but the transcript, I feel like my lawyer dude was dramatically underselling it, but what happened? Nothing. It's just months of wasted time. It's still going to be months of wasted time. But, my lawyer said that it went well. They had a hearing for, so obviously opposing counsels are meeting and they're trying to figure out like an appropriate schedule for when to schedule things for the court, like filing motions. Like you want to do as much of this outside of court as possible because one, mainly because you just want to respect the court's time, right? You don't want to go in front of a judge and start arguing and everything. The judge is like, have you even talked to the opposing counsel yet? Like, have you guys had a conversation? Like, no. It's like, why are you wasting my time with this, right? So typically you'll hash out as much as you can before actually, like filing things with the court. Like everybody should kind of be on the up and up and know what's happening. And if you don't do this, it's generally considered pretty bad manners. I don't think you would get like a case tossed for it, but it's you're wasting the court's time. So our two legal teams had a conversation for scheduling. And then the very next day, these guys file a TRO, a temporary restraining order against me for for retarded shit. And my legal counsel has no idea about this. I was like, okay, well, we just met yesterday. Why are you filing a surprise TRO? Like 2 months after the complaint has been filed also. So so the hearing for that was like 3 days ago. So they show up the next day. My guy has to call in because he's from out of town, and yeah, the judge kind of goes off on these people. It's funny to read the transcript. They're like, why are you filing this right now? And they're like, well, we're filing this emergency. It's like, why didn't you? The case is like 2 months old. If this is an emergency TRO, why the fuck wouldn't you file this immediately? And they're like, well, we were trying to get our. Oh, what was he? He was like, well, I have cancer, so I've been flying back and forth for treatments, and the other lawyer has pneumonia, so we were out of service for like a month. And I was like, what is wrong with you? What is this? And they're like, we had 15 people who were going to come forward, but now we only have one. It's like, okay, well, this is good times. It was just fucking retarded. The fact that they even tried to do this, and we got an extension, so we have to do like a preliminary injunction hearing. It's like, for what? And it's just like, it's all over like the most retarded shit.
Of labor and industry.
Secretary, I you. Will the clause also apply to the sectoral tariffs that the president has announced, pharma, lumber, anything else?
No, it's on the reciprocal.
So Andrea,
go ahead.
I haven't seen it.
What?
It was two separate people. I didn't read that part. They couldn't both be sick too. Well, one said they were traveling back and forth for cancer treatments, and I think the other one said that they were. I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm not going to go through all this. I'm sorry. Well, Your Honor, I do apologize for the delay in getting that motion out. There are a number of reasons why that happened. One, and I hate to go into personal things, but Mr. Garcia was dealing with a cancer issue and going back and forth to Texas. I had pneumonia, and I was out straight for more than 2 weeks, so we were really set back. There's just two of us working on this case, and so that's significantly delayed. But there are also other reasons, which is that we were trying to gather affidavits from witnesses to bolster our evidence for the TRO and get, witnesses lined up for it. Why wouldn't you do this before filing? Wouldn't that make more sense? Unfortunately, what we've encountered is that a number of women that have come forward to us have backed out because they were afraid of retaliation. We went with what we have now, which basically went from 50 potential witnesses providing evidence down to the one witness, in addition to the plaintiff. It's so dumb. I keep getting, there's still this like part of me that is getting worried that I'm like missing something that's really obvious, obviously, because I'm watching all of the other like the retarded lawyers on YouTube that cover this, and I'm like, why does it feel like everybody's like being so retarded? Am I overestimating myself, or are these people just like haters or something? But I think, yeah. So like the court's response is, this doesn't have anything to do with anything. This is not a class action. You filed on behalf of one woman. The TRO requests. Oh, and like their TRO request was that I take videos down from online. Like, I can't do that. I'm not the one hosting anything. But yeah, I don't know. It's retarded. Okay. Anyway.
Well, I think what we've seen, I think the willingness by more than 75 countries to come and negotiate, I think now the market understands that everything they saw last Wednesday was a ceiling, and now we have a 10%.
Oh, and then the judge did roast him on this TRO thing. I mean, it is a little odd, ma'am. I will just say, if you're sitting talking about the schedule and everything, clearly you were already working on the TRO. Probably the defendant didn't love to get that TRO filed, like the day after you were conferring for an hour on the schedule. It doesn't mean you couldn't do it. It's just that it's not great. And then they respond, I hear what you're saying, Your Honor. And the judge says, it's not a great way to start a case.
This is the aircraft carrier shelter you seized, previously owned by a small faction of about 800 people.
Now, it's entirely yours. Although you lost over 500 members, you finally have your shelter. After clearing the bodies, you sorted the supplies on...
It understands that everything they saw last Wednesday was a ceiling, and now we have a 10% temporary floor. And I think the market, my 35 years in the market, I always wanted certainty, so I think we've got more certainty.
But Mr. Secretary, Maggie, go ahead. Mr. Secretary, why do people assume this is the last word? The president began this morning saying, be cool, 5 hours later, he announced his policy. Why will investors in the market assume that this is it?
Because, again, as I...
Take down videos as part of the restraining order? Yeah, it's all of it is just so silly. Or like somebody, and again, a lot of the penny lawyers on YouTube have been talking about like spoliation of evidence, or like trying to say that I've violated some kind of request for a preservation of evidence because I'm deleting stuff on Discord or whatever. I guess now since all this stuff is getting filed or whatever, and it's all public anyway, the obligation to preserve evidence is an obligation to preserve evidence. That's it. It doesn't mean you have to make it available for everybody else. There is no obligation, like, not to delete a Discord message. Like, I can delete whatever the fuck I want online. My only obligation is I have to back up stuff that I received, I request for a preservation of evidence about, or stuff that could be foreseeably used in a, whatever's relevant to this case. That's it. So, like, people who are, like, all over and like, oh my god, he deleted Discord logs with this person, like, and? That doesn't mean anything, but, yeah, sorry, everything about this is so fucking retarded.
Said we've given 90 days, and the only certainty we can provide is that the U.S. is going to negotiate in good faith, and we assume that our allies will too. And in terms of certainty, we will see what China does. But what I'm certain of is that what China is doing will affect their economy much more than it will ours, because they have an export-driven, flood the world with cheap export models, and the rest of the world now understands, because when we put up our...
Like they had access to, unlucky they didn't back it up. Well, that's the thing too, is that, like, again, if you're filing this case, you should have all of your evidence already done. Why would you, I'm not gonna go dig through the transcripts, but like they were arguing that like we're having trouble gathering evidence for this case because the defendant has been deleting logs or whatever. Why, if somebody is reporting something to you, why wouldn't you be archiving all of that information instantly? Why would you file a complaint that you don't have any evidence for? Because isn't that what you're admitting, that you literally filed this complaint with a holy mail, or a holy, or not a holy grail. I was mixing up Hail Mary and Holy Grail. There's like a Hail Mary of like, if we just file a court case, he'll either just settle and pay me a fuck ton of money, or maybe we get access to all of his shit and we can find something. Like, it's whatever. Just waste. It's all right, because I get to play Factorio, and that's what I like. That's what I like.
Tariff wall, those exports were already flowing.
I'm so confused. What's new right now? Is it TRO rejected, or is there more? There's nothing new. They tried to file for a TRO, that got rejected. So now we have a preliminary injunction hearing. But that's, I seriously doubt they're going to get anywhere on that, because the preliminary injunction is just asking me to don't delete evidence, which I don't know why you would file it. Like, that's already the rule. So I don't know what you're filing there. And then the other one is like asking me to get videos taken down from like websites and shit, which I have no power to do. And the opposing party has just as much power, probably more power than I do, to get videos removed, because there are certain websites where those videos are hosted where if I were to submit that request, it would blow it up even more. So like, it's all dumb.
The rest of the world now understands, because when we put up our tariff wall, those exports were already flowing to the rest of the G7 and to the global south.
Secretary, how much of this decision was driven by the bond market cratering overnight? What is happening? Like China selling their bonds?
I have nothing that says that, and we actually...
Seems like they have to ask the judge to tell you to take down videos, because part of their assertion is that you released and did all of it on purpose. That's your doing all of it. Yeah, that's part of their claim, but I mean, like, the stuff that they've presented so far, they have no evidence for any of the claims. Like, none of it. Like, so they're... But yeah, the problem is that, like, for, I think, 2 of the 4 civil causes of action that they're relying on, there needs to be a huge... there has to be a malicious intent purpose attached to it, which is retarded. The only malicious intent porn I've ever leaked is of your mom. Just kidding. Just kidding.
We had quite a good 10-year auction today.
I missed it. Did Destiny talk about the Supreme Court ruling refiring federal workers? I did not talk about it, but I think I saw that that TRO was also appealed. What if we had 3 or 4 TROs now go to the Supreme Court? I don't know if this has ever happened in the history of all of the United States. That a TRO is even appealable on this level, and let alone all the way up to the Supreme Court. It's fucking retarded.
And all this was, again, this was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and
the judge shut this down as it's clearly a fishing expedition, as they haven't submitted anything and they're hoping to find something. Well, so the ideally is that it won't survive the summary judgment stage, but we'll see.
This was his strategy all along, and that you might even say that he'd go to China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors, and we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message. Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well.
This is so unhinged. Like, we're gonna do some crazy unhinged shit against you, but you better not hit us back, and then everything will be okay. I hate this. Oh my god.
Well,
we started with a 90-day pause, and we will see if more countries turn up, but what will happen. But we have a meeting with Vietnam today, and we have one of the largest trade deficits with them, so I'm hoping it will move in a good direction. I was at the Japanese ambassador's house last night for the Cherry Blossom Festival, which is quite festive, and...
Do you think he hung off of any trees? Do you think that Amy Coney Barrett is aware of the stage set around her, that she's supposed to be party to it? I don't know how real this is. Like, I hear a lot of people saying this. Even the guy yesterday said it when he came in, the lawyer dude. That, like, first of all, Supreme Court justices are humans, okay? Believe it or not. They're human beings. So they have all the same follies of being a human being. So, like, an example of this I heard is Supreme Court justices, when they get old, really don't like it when people tell them, you should retire. You're getting old. They fucking hate that. And that might have been one of the reasons why our Ruth Bader Ginsburg, what a demonic name, why she didn't leave. And there was another Supreme Court justice who was really old. It's not Steyer. What was his name? Steve Breyer? Breyer. Did he's not a Supreme Court justice now, so I guess he stepped down, or did he die? Wait, I don't even know. Hold on.
And I need a fuckload of...
No, he's alive. But that when apparently, yeah, he did retire. Okay, yeah. But apparently,
Dude.
told us. So I don't know how true that is. I've read that in some blogs. But then I've also heard it said multiple times now that Supreme Court justices really, really, really want to be the one. They want to be that deciding vote in a split court. And if Amy wants to go and be a liberal cuck the whole time, then Roberts is now the one that everybody looks to for supreme guidance, because he is the swing vote on the court, and it makes him the coolest and most important Supreme Court justice, if that is the case. I don't know how much this plays into people's mentality or not, but...
Hi, I'm Brett.
And I'm Jonathan.
This is Darla.
And this is Buddy.
We're the founders of the Farmer's Dog.
We've made an entirely new way to feed your dog.
It all started with my first dog, Jada. I got Jada in my early 20s. It was just love at first sight. She was the most adorable, smart dog.
He and I had a good chat. They are going to send...
Fucking commercial after commercial.
These are complicated negotiations. These are imbalances that have taken decades.
Does the Supreme Court not have term limits? Is it just because the president appoints them? They don't have term limits. I don't know if there's a good reason for them not to have term limits, but like long ones. But.
And a deal team over. So we'll see. These are complicated negotiations. These are imbalances that have taken decades to create. But I think having seen the maximum level that Donald Trump is willing to go to, President Trump has created this negotiating leverage.
Excuse me, everybody. Excuse me. The secretary is obviously a very busy man. As he has said, he's had more than 75 countries that the trade team has to respond to. I'd just like to end with this. For decades, Republicans and Democrats have said that these unfair trade practices are ripping off the American people, are ripping off our country, but nobody has ever done anything to address it. We finally have a president here at the White House who is playing the long game, who is doing what is right for the American worker and our industries here at home, and he has put together a fantastic team in Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lustnick, the entire trade team, who will be focusing on negotiating these good deals to put the American workers first, and we're going to get to work to do that. Thank you.
Deals, huh?
Live from the White House, the press secretary...
What about the EU?
...in the driveway outside the West Wing, sparring with reporters there, answering questions after Donald Trump made clear that the 90-day review period would begin for countries not retaliating to reciprocal tariffs placed by the United States. In fact, took effect at 12:01 a.m. There's a big exception here, and that's China, now facing a 125% tariff. Markets taking off on news of this review. Scott Bessent just now saying we have a 10% temporary floor, and something we've heard him say before, Kaylee, the initial Trump tariffs are the maximum level. The idea would be engage with this White House, we start to pull them back. Interesting.
Well, the maximum level, unless, I guess, you retaliate, right?
To hear him suggest the president goaded China into this position.
Didn't you say Gorsuch wasn't a retard? Why does he keep making wrong decisions? I said that I really loved Gorsuch's writing on the Loper case. I thought it was written very well. And then a bunch of other people, I think Pisco and a couple other people, were like, no, Gorsuch makes a lot of bad decisions. Don't be fooled. So.
Don't be fooled.
But I just thought he wrote the offensive Loper version.
Suggesting this was his strategy all along. And interesting to hear as well, the press secretary telling the media assembled to speak with these two that they misunderstood or were missing Trump's art of the deal, despite characterizations initially of these tariffs being non-negotiable and not a negotiated
Why is this person standing in all my chats? I read the SAVE Act, but I can't find why there's lib drama about excluding married women's ability to vote. Am I missing something? What is it? Why is this person spamming everywhere? What is this? What is the save act? Stop. Don't spam the same fucking question across like every single chat. Holy shit.
Maybe it all was for the deal at the end.
You wonder if Peter Navarro read that book because he's been projecting $6 trillion in revenue over the next decade from these tariffs that are, in some cases, maybe never going to take effect.
Well, certainly the market is hoping maybe that's the case. At the very least, they're satisfied. Investors seem to be with this 90-day pause. Again, the NASDAQ 100 nearly 9% higher on the day. It's a 7% gain as we speak for the S&P 500. And it's on that note we turn to our colleague Joe Weisenthal, who, of course, is the host of the Odd Lots podcast. Joe, is this...
Also, I fell into this trap last night. I was up till like 4 a.m. Not good. I don't know how I feel about them adding this to Factorio because now it's like cancer. It's not cancer. I enjoy it, but I don't know if it's good or not. Rolling for gear and setting up recyclers to roll for gear. What do you mean written well? Like philosophically or literally? The arguments were good. I don't know how to say this. I assume that like every Supreme Court justice is just like a smart guy, and to some extent they might be. No, that's not true. Thomas is a fucking retard. Alito might just be crazy, but I haven't read anything retarded by Alito. I have read retarded stuff by Roberts and by Thomas, but I just mean that like Gorsuch basically wrote a big concurring opinion in Loper, which is the thing that overturned Chevron, talking about the concept of stare decisis, why it exists, and why, in this case, it shouldn't allow them to, or it shouldn't compel them to uphold the Chevron decision. And I just thought the way that he wrote it, the way that he cited each piece of it, the way that he provided historical evidence of good stare decisis, of the different elements, and then explained why it didn't apply to this case, I just thought the writing on that was very well done. I appreciated it a lot.
Is this just proof that investors were waiting with bated breath for the opportunity to buy the dip?
I mean, what I'll say is I think it's evidence that it's a huge relief that there's at least...
Thomas is dumb, but his writing is superior to anyone in the court? Like in a meme sense? Or... I guess I shouldn't say that. No, I've read a few things by Thomas now, I think, that are fucking retarded. The special counsel thing on the immunity case, that was retarded. What else did I read? It was on one of the TRO repeal things I think Thomas wrote on. It was retarded.
At least some impulse to take an off-ramp here. And last night when we saw Treasury yields blowing out, when we saw the 10-year hit 4.5%, these are dynamics that happen when there is like extreme stress, illiquidity, run dynamics happening in financial markets. That can persist very long. When you see moves like what we saw last night, I know the Secretary Bessent there said this was not a response to what we were seeing in market volatility, that it was all, part of the deal, etc. Nonetheless, part of the deal. Clearly the markets were under
part of the deal, part of the deal, part of the deal.
100 futures, they're still down 5.5%.
Fucking art of the deal.
China tariffs are still huge. That's going to be huge.
Art of the deal.
There's the 10% sort of floor tariffs. Those are still in place. So look, I think it's a big relief that obviously some of this has been delayed, but I think there's still quite a bit to work through here at a very minimum before there's some sort of like true all clear. Every major index is still like deeply in the red on the year. S&P is down 9.6% on the year.
Yeah, wow. Joe, it's great to have you with us here as this evolves before our eyes. One of the reporters in the driveway asked a really important question of the Treasury Secretary. Why should investors have confidence that this isn't going to change again in the next 12 hours? This just took effect at 12:01 a.m.
Oh my God.
The psychology at this moment.
Hater alert.
I mean, I think there's two things. It's like, one is like, yes, we've now seen that these headlines can change all the time. I guess like it seems plausible that, okay, for the next 90 days, you get some sort of respite on the non-China companies. But I think even outside of the stock market, you have to think about actual business investing, hiring, etc. And we've seen the business side sentiment surveys absolutely horrendous. We haven't gotten a lot of hard data that really speaks to what was happening economically in the middle of March. Earlier in the week, we heard Larry Fink. He said every CEO that he talks to thinks the recession has already begun. Jamie Dimon talked about recession being the base case. So even with the 90-day pause in the non-China countries, it's worthwhile to think about like what the last several days have done for the business community in terms of saying like, wait, you don't know the rules. Now we don't know what the rules are going to be for like 3 months probably. And so we continue to have this environment where if nothing else, the trading relationship is highly uncertain, which at least in the short term is not conducive to investment. But they would probably argue, it's short-term pain for long-term gain.
Well, it's incredible that these headlines hit in the 1 o'clock hour ahead of the Fed minutes, which are due to come out just a few minutes from now, Joe. I guess whatever news we might have seen in them probably overshadowed by these developments, keeping in mind it's backward-looking minutes and they didn't know what the tariff levels were going to be in the...
Are we just going to have an official insider trading bonanza every 90 days now? No, he's already got like a cryptocurrency that allows anybody in the world to buy him off or bribe him if he wants. So, I mean, like...
first place, let alone that they would be pulled back. But it speaks to the kind of uncertainty we keep hearing Chairman Powell talk about as to why the Fed isn't enticed to move in any direction because so much is so unclear.
There's so much that's so unclear. Short-term market-based inflation measures going up, long-term ones going down. So much uncertainty, soft data going down, hard data still going up. And the other...
You know what? It didn't start with a big bang. started with a metal pipette, and then 1,000 of them, day in, day out. But then, he changed everything. He gave us purpose, a choice. Dig in the dust, or...
I said, praying Trump leaves before he's completely destroyed this country. Prayer hands. Talking to my mom, because she keeps sending me shit. She said, no, Biden wasn't even running the country. I'm not sure about Trump's strategy, but I believe he loves the country, and he knows what he's doing. It took massive fraud to install Biden, and he did not govern the country, and I believe the Dems profited from the Ukraine war. I said, that's fine, but there's no information supporting any of this, and Trump is destroying literally everything good about this country right now out of spite. She said, there's lots of info on Biden. Trump is being strategic. Love you, Mom, heart. And then she sent me a video.
Believe that Elon Musk is ruining the country. But they said no such thing when President Obama did this very same thing. Listen to how he explained it.
And that includes cutting back on billions of dollars in programs that a lot of people care about. But what should be easy is getting rid of the pointless waste and stupid spending that doesn't benefit anybody. Waste we should be getting rid of even if we didn't have a deficit. We're off to a good start. Over the last 2 years, we've pulled the plug on all kinds of ridiculous practices. Apparently, the government used to overnight containers filled with nothing. Don't ask why that is. Sure, some of these cuts aren't that big.
Wow! Is Obama talking about actual waste, fraud, and abuse? In this case, it's waste. But wow, it's actually, that sounds like a thing that's just wasteful. That isn't ideologically charged one way or another, or just unless somebody really wants to send overnight shipping containers that are empty.
But no amount of waste is acceptable. Not when it's your money. Not at a time when so many Americans are already cutting back. Just as families are living within their means, government should too. So we can invest in the things that we know will create good jobs and grow the economy.
The Democrats would have...
Okay.
Speaking of uncertainty, look, we all heard, the White House's presentation there about the art of the deal, and China has now been goaded to being revealed as the bad actor, et cetera. And okay, that's a fine story. However, last week at the Rose Garden, those reciprocal tariffs were very specifically presented in such a manner that every country that runs a bilateral trade surplus with us, almost every country, was per se engaged in bad action.
Per se.
That's the whole premise of reciprocity. And so, it's clearly not presented that China was anything particularly special last week. The story has evolved.
It's so wild that thanks to the Supreme Court's immediate decision, Trump can technically get away with other nations paying him personally to remove tariffs via his crypto. You think he's going to try it? That's a good point, actually, because that would probably be, we would call that like a criminal action, maybe like a type of bribe. But I mean, it's directly within his powers to do this as an official action of the president. So, good point.
Reciprocity. And so, it's clearly not presented that China was anything particularly special last week. The story has evolved. The story has evolved, whether it's negotiations versus non-negotiations, etc. So, again, I'm not surprised that there is this sort of massive sigh of relief. We actually knew that there would be a massive sigh of relief on Monday when we got the fake headline about a 90-day pause. So we knew the market was looking for something like this.
Thoughts on the retarded trend of posting people's Hinge messages on Twitter? I don't know why, but it's actually pissing me off so much, and I need to understand why. Who's posting them? Because depending on who's posting them, I can tell you exactly why.
But I think there's still a lot of question marks about the sort of what any negotiations would look like and what kind of economic degradation we see in the meantime.
I'd love to hear the Trump interview on Odd Lots, I have to say. We've only got a minute left. We want to clear out in time for Fed Minutes, Joe. But we heard the president said last night, this is a great time to buy. Said that this morning, in fact. Everything is going to work out well. Is there a world in which you're allowing him to eventually be correct?
Yeah, of course. No, I hope so. Like, there's a few things. It's like, one is obviously you hope to have like a prosperous global economy, which would be fantastic.
Do we care about that,
though?
Trump
administration, there's a lot of anxiety about the nature of the U.S. Really, everyone's reliance on China for domestic manufactured goods. Obviously, the Biden administration tried to affect change on that respect, at least with respect to sort of like cutting edge tech, like semiconductors, etc. There is a lot that could be better about the world. When you look at how much the markets sell off, that's really indicative of like investors are much more pessimistic than they were about the state of the world than they were at the beginning of the year. But look, like I said, I understand, and I think it makes total sense why there's this
Solo Beverly, thanks for the private memberships.
Massive sigh of relief happening in markets right now.
What a great chance to spend some time
sigh of relief.
Next Odd Lots ought to be all right. It's great to see you at World Headquarters in New York. Haley, imagine.
I think it's a sigh of relief, like that sigh of relief you have when you are, when you're like halfway through a roller coaster and you don't know if you've gone over the biggest one yet. It's like that right after you've gone over the top and you're like going forward. That kind of sigh of relief, because we're not off yet, baby.
We are not off yet.
What has taken place since we took air at 1 p.m. This has been a remarkable period of time.
And a remarkable rally we're seeing in the markets right now. Up nearly 10 percentage points on the NASDAQ 100. That index heading for its best day since March of 2020. Nearly 8% gain on the S&P. They're going to have more.
I know you say to always hold out, but would now be a good time to start divesting from stocks? I don't know how to mentally equip you, okay, with this heuristic, because you either understand this or you don't. Okay? If you think a thing, then everybody's probably thinking the thing, meaning everybody else is accounted for it in some way financially, so you're not going to have a leg up on anybody, if that makes sense. So if you think that it would be good to like move away from all US markets or whatever, then you should figure out a way to do that in a way that is financially responsible and takes into account your individual needs as an investor, because different age categories will have different things that they're looking for in their investments, and then execute that strategy. But don't ever trade emotionally under this bad assumption that, okay, I see something really bad is happening in the market, I'm going to make a big move to save myself, an undue amount of pain, because that just will almost never be the case. You're just not going to be able to trade like that. That's all it's all priced in, okay?
Coverage of this on Bloomberg Business Week as we await the Fed minutes just moments from now as well. Carol and Tim will take it over from New York.
All right, guys, thank you.
Did you see Hassan's video on poverty? As it was toe curling stuff, this millionaire in a mansion is saying poor people are all right wing for. Wait, what? Link.
Thank you so much. Of course, Joe and Kelly there. And folks, yes, we are taking over here on Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Massar along with Tim Stanovic. And here we've got, a rally. We've got stocks surging the most since 2020. Tim, safe to say that we are living in, I feel like, a week of superlatives.
Yeah, the S&P 500 up 7.6% right now. The NASDAQ Composite up by 9.5%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average higher by 6.5%. We did hear earlier from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who describes that initial Trump tariffs as maximum level, though denied the bond market was impacted by a tariff change.
I got to say, it was just about what...
Do we think of things no one has thought of before? Yeah, it's possible, but you need a really good reason why you could think of that. And if you can't answer that question immediately, then you probably haven't. You're probably bullshitting yourself.
Initial Trump tariffs is maximum level, though denied the bond market was impacted by a tariff change.
I got to say, it was just about, 30 minutes ago, that kind of the game change, certainly on Wall Street, as the president announcing a 90-day tariff pause on non-retaliating countries. Right now, though, our focus goes to the latest Fed minutes, and we do have them crossing, so that means off to Mike McKee at the Federal Reserve. Mike.
Well, facing an economy that was slowing but still growing with sticky inflation and a relatively solid labor market, it's no surprise that Fed officials spent most of their March 19th meeting discussing tariffs. Stagflation was on their mind with, quote, almost all participants viewing risks to inflation as tilted to the upside and risks to employment tilted to the downside. Several noted the planned tariff increases were larger than their business contacts had anticipated, and some companies were already reporting tariff...
Can Destiny say 5 words without saying the word retarded? Yes. I fucked your mom last night, retard.
Price increases. Contacts also...
Aren't you tired of Hassan's slop and then Asman's slop? We need new enemies. Despite me being banned from Twitch, they kind of inhabit, like, my space. Like, I would say those are the largest actors in my space, so I feel like I kind of need to keep tabs on it. I feel like it's good to know what's going on over there.
Doomsday, Last Survivors. Play now.
If you're here in Texas and you have an old heating or air conditioning system like this one, we can get you a brand new, super efficient one like this one right here for $0 down and only $39 a month. If you guys are interested, if you'd like the details on this offer, just click below. It's going to take you to a page with 1 or 2 quick questions, and then it'll text you over the details. Again, if you're anywhere here in Texas, we are one of the largest and most trusted heating and air conditioning companies in the state. And this month, we can get you a brand new, super, super efficient heating and air conditioning system. It is a heat pump, so it will be able to do both for $0 down and only $39 a month. If you guys are interested, if you'd like the details, again, just click below. It's going to take you to a page with 1 or 2 quick questions, and then we'll text you over the details.
indicated a willingness to pass those price increases along to consumers. A couple of the participants noted it could be difficult to determine whether inflation was caused by persistent price rises or by tariffs. The labor market remained strong through the middle of March, but federal government layoffs had begun to affect employment at contractors, universities, hospitals, and other organizations. Many participants noted that business survey respondents to them reported pausing hiring.
Has your ban appeal been rejected yet? No, but it's been like a month now, right? So I don't know what's going on with that.
Because of elevated policy uncertainty. Everything considered, participants felt the net effect of government policy.
I feel like it's hard to talk about myself because I understand it can always come off as me being biased with myself, but like I feel like from Twitch's perspective, I think it's a really hard like proposition to keep me banned. I don't understand why, unless it's like I can't think of a reason beyond it's just very, very, very personal, which obviously just makes me sound ass pained. But like for a company that's like desperately looking for like viewership, right? That's not doing too well financially, and then that has unbanned people that have been so much more unhinged than me. I don't know, it just seems weird, but
policies on the economic outlook was high, making it appropriate to take a cautious approach. And given the current state of policy and stance of policy, the Fed was well positioned, they said, to wait for more clarity on the outlook. Though some observed they might face difficult trade-offs if inflation proved to be more persistent while the outlook for growth and employment weakened. On the balance sheet, although Fed Governor Christopher Waller was the only one to vote against a slowing of the balance sheet runoff, the minute shows several participants said they did not see a compelling case for a slowdown. There's no indication whether the participants felt that this would be a permanent move or a temporary move. Guys?
All right. On a ordinary Fed Minutes day, Mike, we would have some more for you, but we got to get back to the markets because we are seeing certainly a rally underway. Of course, our Mike McKee there at the Federal Reserve in Washington. Just a reminder, folks, we've got up a gain of about 395 points on the S&P 500, a gain of about 8%. We've got the NASDAQ 100 up almost 10%, up about 9.7%.
Fucking kill me, Rokana tweet. Honestly, Sam Harris's criticism of Joe Rogan and Lex Friedman is the condescending attitude that lost Democrats the election. We should not be afraid to joust intellectually. We should be confident that our views will prevail in the messy marketplace of ideas and talk to almost anyone. One thing that I've been trying to do is, I mean, you've heard me talk about this a lot over the past year, is like updating when somebody says something, what are they actually saying? Right? So something I've said a lot before is people will complain about, say, economic anxiety, but they're not really complaining about that. There's something else happening either in their life personally or, you know, at large with respect to with just respect to all of society that they're actually like tracking on or it can map onto these complaints. And to figure that out is a challenge, right? Another thing I'm trying to keep in mind when I see things is sometimes I really got this idea from I don't remember the words this guy used, but somebody sent me an email talking about how you can't do a univariable, like a single trait, and increase it or decrease it and expect to see the outcomes for a particular person strictly increase or strictly decrease. That some traits work really well in conjunction with each other, but two traits that are really good together on their own might be really bad. I don't know if I've talked about this specifically, but it's kind of funny. One thing that when I look at Nathan is very similar to me in a lot of ways, and to me that's really worrying because there are some traits that I have that are not that great on their own, but like in conjunction with each other, I think they work really well. So I think I'm incredibly stubborn, but I think I'm pretty smart. So like there is a thing that I will bash my head against the wall for a long time until I figure it out, and I enjoy that process, but I'm like smart enough to kind of, you know, understand like, okay, well, maybe it's time to stop this, or maybe this isn't working. If you had the stubbornness, but you didn't have, you know, the intelligence or the idea to understand like, okay, well, this isn't worth it anymore, then that stubbornness, instead of being an asset, instead of being viewed as being like tenacious or, you know, having a lot of perseverance, now you're just viewed as, you know, like bullheaded or, you know, just like you're wasting your time on something. I bring this up because Ro kind of just talked about the condescending thing, and my immediate emotional pushback is, well, hold on. Conservatives are so condescending. Why are they allowed to be condescending and we're not allowed to be condescending? You've heard me say this a lot over the past several months. Like, conservatives can do this, but we can't do this. Why? And I think more and more when I think about this, I think it's because they're just traits that run together really well, and if you separate them, they're bad. So being condescending, I think, is fine, but it has to come from a place of like almost like this earned righteous indignation where you're also willing to go to war for a particular thing. So for instance, if somebody on Twitter was like, oh, I think that all trans people are fake, and I start tweeting out, or I argue a little bit. I'm like, well, I think that you're a bigoted piece of shit. Fuck you. Whatever. And the guy's like, oh, well, whatever, let's argue about it. I'm like, no, you're transphobic. I'm never talking to you. You're fuck you, blah, 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 right? I'll just come off as like a condescending, soy fuck or whatever. But if you're willing to have like an argument with a person, if you get on stage with a person, if you start shouting at them or whatever there, and you're like, you're so fucking retarded, you don't understand, X, Y, Z, these thoughts don't make sense, you're a bigoted fucking piece of shit, whatever. Even though you have a similar amount of condescension, or you could argue in my Owen Schroyer debate, right? I was very condescending to him, but I think it works when it's paired with other things.
Break free with the new Opera GX, the browser that puts you in control, with a brand new design that frees up even more pixels for personalization and an inventory of features to up your game at every level. Like GX Control to help rein in your resources with integrated limiters for RAM, CPU, and network. A sidebar for direct access to your favorite side quests, streams, and posts. And built-in privacy tools like ad and tracker blockers and free no-log VPN.
Sorry, that was a ramble. I'm just want to try to think of like traits that work or don't work for political messaging. Also, Ro Khanna is not somebody that you want to model your party after. Ro Khanna is very populist, so just be aware of that. He's a cool dude, I guess, like personally, or I guess like he's kind of. I don't actually know what I would even say positively on, but Ro Khanna's he's not the guy. Be careful for that.
1,665 points to the upside. We've seen that momentum in the equity trade build even after those Fed minutes. So
why is news covering this like it's all just funny memes, left and right media? It's Twilight Zone shit. Because none of this just doesn't make any. It's just not. I don't know how you could cover this like seriously, or I don't even know what you would say. Like I said, this is meme shit. Like this just can't happen, even though it is happening. It doesn't. None of this makes any sense.
1,665 points to the upside. We've seen that momentum in the equity trade build even after those Fed minutes. So let's get to it with Gina Martin Adams.
Gina Martin Adams is from Bloomberg Intelligence. She's chief equity strategist.
I was disappointed when Dillahunty walked out on Andrew Wilson, but I also understood why he did. Maybe. I feel like once you're starting to invoke personal relationships, I think most people will see you as being in the okay to exit from that. Which I think is basically what happened, right? Because wasn't Andrew Wilson bringing up his Matt Dillahunty's wife or whatever? Did you imply that Nathan was stubborn but not smart enough for that to be an advantage? No, I think Nathan is pretty smart. But I don't know. It might just be my infinite humility. I just get really worried because I feel like my life ended up working out, and I feel like I got very, very, very lucky because I just happened to play the right games when I grew up. I happened to be in a family that allowed me to play enough video games to be good at them. I happened to becoming of a certain age and lose a job right as the technology for streaming even became possible. I happened to have there's just so much that worked out. I think I'm probably overthinking it though. It's probably fine. He'll be fine. I'm sure he'll be fine. I think we think about our kids and whatever.
She's here in our Bloomberg Business Week studio. Gina, the NASDAQ 100, in fact, did soar more than 10% at one point. Its biggest gain since October 2008. This is like a generational move on a daily basis for equity markets. How are you watching a move such as this based on the president's 90-day reprieve?
How much do you want to just go home?
Yes, please.
With us.
October 2008 was obviously a very, very difficult time in the equity markets. You don't see these kind of moves unless the equity market is extremely, extremely nervous. And upside and downside moves to this extent are bad news. And I think if you think about it, October 2008 was followed by devastating declines in the equity market into March 2009.
Right, that was the low, March 2009.
Yeah, we didn't hit our lows till 2009.
You got imposter syndrome? I absolutely do not have imposter syndrome. Thank you for questioning that, though. I definitely think I'm where I'm at for a reason. I don't think any of it is a mistake. I've gone through enough ups and downs to know that I'm here for a decent reason. I've earned the spot. But I mean, there's an undeniable amount of luck that plays into everything that happens as well, right? Like I could have been born in Indonesia, for example.
Unfortunately, the reality of today is just more volatility, more volatility. I don't know when this slows down. This maybe removes the Armageddon scenario. It does not remove the recession scenario that stocks still have to contend with. And that's troubling because we don't...
Wait, so what the fuck is going on? So Trump upped tariffs on China to some arbitrary crazy amount. I think he said 150% or something. But then he said so many other beautiful countries have given him so many beautiful phone calls that he's lowering the tariffs on the rest of the world to 10%. So it's just fucking retarded. That's it. Yeah, I don't know. Would you ever allow Nathan to live off of your success, or would you expect him to get a job and try to manage his own life quite independently? I told him he has to get a college degree before he does anything else. That's all I said. Just get your fucking degree, okay?
Don't know where we're going to go for the next 90 days. The first pause of 30 days was hard enough for the economy and the equity market. A 90-day pause, I know that we're supposed to trust that this is going to turn out better, but businesses have to make decisions in the short term, and their hands are tied for making decisions, and that means a slowdown in activity. Consumer behavior had already started to shift in anticipation of these tariffs, so that it just infuses more uncertainty into the equity market, unfortunately.
Dude, the technology in this thing is insane. Watch this.
Have you tried this new anti-slice technology that's taking the golf world by storm?
My God, I just can't slice this driver.
Here's the fastest way to stop slicing the golf ball without any drills, without hitting balls at the range, and without making a single change to your swing. Impossible? Watch this. This brand new driver is quickly becoming the most popular gift of the year for amateur golf.
Maybe removes the maximum downside risk, but does not altogether remove downside risk, which is a bit troubling.
You know, I got to say, I thought about that even just personally. I was like, whoo, yay, right, mark it up. And then I thought, yeah, but let's see what tomorrow brings. You know, we had a CEO on who plays in the auto parts world, and he said this environment reminds him of the great financial crisis, the COVID shutdown, and a union walkout, like among the auto sector.
Yeah, Swami Konagiri of Magna.
Of Magna. And so all of that together, that's what he said this environment reminded him of. I mean, that's pretty heavy.
Yeah, it's very, very tough because decision-making in an environment where the headlines drive, you know, what could be the economic outcomes is very, very hard, especially when the headlines change on a day-to-day basis. How do you plan for the long-term future? I think companies would be right to plan for the worst and hope for the best. When companies are planning for the worst, that generally is going to mean a slowdown in economic activity in the short run. They can't.
Yeah, imagine calling everybody. I think I missed this yesterday. I think you guys were telling me to rewind, I think. Maybe this was the part we were and I just missed it. And I was rewatching clips this morning where Trump said that every country that was calling him, does anybody know what I'm referring to? He said that all of them were ass kissers. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, again, even from a purely, self-interested, selfish piece of shit point of view, why would you say that to people who are calling you to make deals? Like, you're destroying your own ability to negotiate. What the fuck? Why would you ever do this?
In the history of our country and in the history of our country. And don't let some of these politicians go around saying, you know, because I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything. I'll do anything, sir. And then I'll see some rebel Republican, you know, some guy that wants to grandstand.
He's talking about, not Paul Ryan. Rand Paul, by the way. Or maybe even Ted Cruz, I don't know. But.
And say, I think that Congress should take over negotiations. Let me tell you, you don't negotiate like I negotiate. In the history.
Also, if we had a functional law system, okay? Not even. It's not even about that. Fuck, the lawyer guy's going to get mad at me in chat. Wait, I need the name. What is your name? What should I call lawyer guy? I don't actually have a name for you. Like, this goes to show in terms of we're not exercising these tariffs as war powers due to a national emergency. He's executing economic policy. That's what he's using these for. He's doing econ policy, right? It's very obvious in the way that he talks. It's obvious in the way that he's acting. Like, fucking... The pretext for all of this is pretextual. It's fucking retarded.
Of our country. And don't let...
Can't plan for the best and disappoint their investor base, right? So I think this is going to be really interesting to see how companies address it in the first quarter earnings season, because they're going to have to guide investors, or at least provide some context as to how they're thinking about this environment of we don't know where things are going.
Gina, I know you don't cover individual companies, but I got to get you to weigh in on the move that we're seeing from Apple right now. It's its biggest move higher going back to March of 2020 at this point. At its highest, it was biggest move since 2008. Stock's up 12% right now. I don't understand this move because Apple relies so heavily on China.
Yeah.
China is retaliating. There is no change.
Careful. If they're on Bloomberg, they absolutely know more about everything related to finance than I do. But if I had to guess from my uneducated perspective, if I have to guess, the moves are happening right now because I still don't think I don't think anybody believes what's happening. And I don't think anybody thinks that it's actually here to stay. And so I think that markets are just trying to basically price in these future cancellations of what's going on. That's why the stocks are moving like so crazily, I think. But
in tariff policy against countries that are retaliating.
President
In fact,
Trump actually
minutes
upped it,
before,
right?
True, actually. Yes, again, that's true. Remember, this is not a checks and balances issue. This is a democracy doesn't work. No, the democracy is working. This is, in a way, what the people voted for. You could argue it's an information problem with the people, but what we're seeing right now is what the people want. Because we have a super easy way. I keep saying this is not a legal challenge at all, actually. If we don't like the way that the president is using this particular act from Congress, we don't even have to change the act from Congress. We can say if the president's using his powers, he should just be impeached. That's super easy. We have a process for this, but Republicans won't do it because they have to win their elections and because people are still largely disinterested. Well, that's not true, actually. The people are starting to wake up. Somebody in the subreddit posted something. They're like, I can't believe 56% of Republicans on some poll still support this. That's crazy. I didn't dig into the poll that they were citing, but if it is true that 56% of Republicans are supporting the tariffs, that is really bad for Trump, because Trump is somebody who has enjoyed massive unconditional support from the conservative movement, like 85% plus on like almost fucking everything all the time. So if those numbers are moving below 70%, if they're like 50% or something, that's good.
There is no change in tariff policy against countries that are retaliating.
President
In fact,
Trump actually
minutes
upped it,
before,
right?
minutes before, we heard on True Social that the president was doing this 90-day reprieve. We saw tariffs upped on China. So why is Apple higher?
Well, a couple of reasons.
There's a failure of Congress, which has been broken for a long time. No, Congress is not broken. It is the people.
When you don't keep your eyes on what you're doing, it can be downright dangerous to you and others, especially when you're behind the wheel. Put your phone down. Heads up, Texas.
With Apartments.com capturing the hearts of hundreds of millions of renters, everybody wants the secret to our success, but they're never going to get it. Will they, Craig?
No, sir.
Apartments.com. Ooh, the place to find a place.
Okay? It's the V for Vendetta scene where he's talking at the TV, and he's like, I understand why you gave your freedoms away, or blah, blah. He's like, if you're trying to figure out who to blame for what's going on right now, you need only look in the mirror, okay? And that is true. Congress is a representation of the people, and that's,
As much as Trump would like to be able to tariff China specifically, China can filter a lot of goods through those countries that are not getting tariffed, that did not retaliate. So there's a little bit more flexibility in the supply chain if you can filter some of the goods through some of Southeast Asia.
Also, keep in mind, somebody posted in my chat earlier about I do shipping for truck stuff and orders are down like 40%. There's a good chance that there's a ton of damage that's already happened that we just haven't seen yet, because it just hasn't had enough time to filter through all of the different market mechanisms to reach consumers. So that could be the case as well. Can you repeat what you said about the IRS yesterday? I was arguing with a magnet, but couldn't remember the numbers. There's like some there's some $500 billion of revenue every year that the IRS just doesn't have the resources to go after. That's just outstanding. That's owed to the IRS.
So, the skeptic in me says, good luck actually tariffing China, when there's a lot. Global trade is a global phenomenon, not a country-to-country phenomenon. The second thing I think is this is a bounce into deepest oversold gets a bounce back to the strongest degree. So if you're deeply, deeply oversold, you should see the deepest oversold stocks ultimately bounce back first and strongest. So I don't want to totally suggest that this is really fundamentally based. This is by the most oversold stocks on a bounce back.
Having said that,
how to fix it's the people problem? Fixing people is a big one. You'd have to change the media environment. You'd have to change the way that politicians behave. You'd have to do a lot of cultural stuff. Like, the first thing is you have to recognize that there's a problem. But I mean, like, there's a ton of different levers that can act on how people think and feel. Parents in the household, teachers in schools, the education system in general, like civics education and stuff, how politicians communicate to people and what they try to do to win elections, local ordinances on how you fund local elections, how the media functions, how alternative figures act online, the rules that like, there's so many different ways that you influence this. But there are just a couple like base assumptions that Americans have about, say, like freedom of speech or the media, and those assumptions are largely unchallenged. And as long as Americans aren't willing to critically look at them, there's no chance that we make any improvements on them, and there's no chance that we significantly improve the environment that we're in.
at 493 names in the S&P 500 or higher as we speak, only 10 or lower. Having said that, looking at the charts of the major equity averages here in the U.S., Gina, and the straight line up, is that also an indicator, yes, of oversold, but also it is tariffs. It is tariffs that is weighing so much down.
Yeah,
no?
because tariffs have so many implications for the economy. They have implications for the currency. They have implications for the appetite for U.S. debt. This is all intermingled. This is a big, big macro phenomenon. And going from a less than 5% average tariff rate to a 20% average tariff rate would have been catastrophic. And there's no doubt about it.
Any opinion on the IRS handing over migrant tax information to ICE? I don't know. I don't know if anybody can compel the IRS to do that. Top IRS officials said to resign after deal to give ICE migrants data. But I also don't know why they shouldn't have any migrant data, right? Because I thought illegals didn't pay taxes, or these immigrants were just stealing from us and didn't pay tax anyway. So why would the IRS have any of their information? No.
So if we're anywhere less than 20%, there is at least, we're removing that downside tail risk that was really weighing on stocks. Is this actually going to emerge, this kind of tail risk? And so we've removed that to some degree with today's trade.
I think one...
Destiny, non-troll answer. I had some Euro friends tell me the First Amendment caused this because it allowed mass disinformation to be spread, which is true. But surely getting rid of free speech rights has its own obvious path towards tyranny. The problem seems intractable. The problem is not intractable at all. The problem is that Americans think that freedom of speech is some binary thing, despite the fact that there are many forms of speech that are outlawed in the United States. But if you even suggest that we need to reanalyze like how we do freedom of speech or how we do media stuff in the United States, a lot of Americans just lose their mind. And they instantly say, well, if you take away all of our freedom of speech, then now we're completely fucked. It's like, okay, nobody's going to take away all of it, and you're unwilling to analyze any of it. So what? I've had this exact same line of dialogue in a million different debates. Like, okay, so you're saying that if we go down this, we need more restrictions on media or more laws regulating this, you're saying it's a one-way ticket to hell? Like we can't even embark on that journey and ask questions and figure out anything at all? Because if you're saying that we can't do anything, so we just need to say, well, right now the path we're already on, I used to say, is leading us to the destruction of this country. Now I would say has already led us to a highly destructive era of our country. The path that we're on right now is not working, right? Isn't there some analogy for, I want to say I just invented this in my mind, but I know I didn't invent this in my mind, and I read this somewhere. If there's a cliff or like a waterfall, and you're in a boat, and the cliff drop-off is here, the human instinct is to try to row against the current as much as possible, even if you have no hope of rowing against the current long enough to keep yourself from falling over the edge, right? What you have to do is you have to decide at some point to swim lateral or to row lateral to the current. And it's going to feel like you're moving backwards a lot, but it's the only way you actually get to shore, right? It's almost like, I don't even know if these are real, but I feel like I read so many warning signs about these growing up, rip tides or whatever, that there can be small undercurrents that are pulling you back. And if you get caught in one of these at the beach, the temptation is to try to swim back to shore, but you'll never be able to outswim this rip tide. You have to swim parallel to the shore, and then once you're away from it, then you can swim back in. And it's this issue of, if you tell people, okay, well, we need to go to the shore, they're like, oh, well, if you're saying that we need to go to the shore, we're just going to go off the cliff. We're just going to die because we're going to be pushed back even further. And it's like, okay, well, right now that's the path that we're on. This isn't working. You can't just stifle any conversation where we consider any other possible alternatives because you're saying that it'll be disastrous, because it is disastrous right now.
One thing that really had investors concerned and had executives concerned was that they didn't see an off-ramp to tariffs such as these. This was what the president wanted, and it's what the president talked about, and it's what he implemented. Does the pause just mean we're kicking the pain down the road 90 days?
This is the concern. We don't know where we're going to be 90 days from now. Just like we didn't know where we were going to be 30 days from now, and the tariffs ended up getting imposed.
Freedom of speech is unironically a brain virus. A lot of people don't understand that it's a set of laws and not some moral vector. You can say, well, you might not want lies spread about you with your address, and some people encourage to come to your house and kill you, but the response is usually, I actually want that, but the consequences should be against people actually doing the harm. It's mega retarded. Yeah, maybe. I think another issue, too, is I don't know where this happened or how this happened. One thing that I felt growing up, the most respect I had for adults was coming out of the womb, and then every subsequent year of engaging with adults in different forums just made me hate grown-ups. I remember when I started working at McDonald's, I was shocked. When I started working at the casino, I was even more shocked. And I remember for probably 3 or 4 years, from like 18 to 21, just thinking all of these people think that they're better than everybody else just because they've, worked a 9 to 5 for 20 or 30 years. But there are so many people coming into my casino, coming into my McDonald's, that like I would be embarrassed to be seen in public with you because of how you act towards other people, towards service workers and shit. I remember thinking that so much. I don't know what it is, but when we look at our children, I'm trying to think if this is real or if parents just do this because they're just assholes. Whenever you give a child something, you tell the child that this isn't a right, this is a privilege, right? And then you let them have something, and you tell them, you can drive now, but you have to be careful when you drive. You can have a phone now, but you have to be careful when you have a phone. I wonder if the concept of rights needs to be eradicated from the American mind, and we should view all of them as privileges. Like freedom of speech is a privilege that comes from God, not government. You can say it doesn't have to come from government, but like the idea that you can have these things in an unchecked manner where you don't have to exercise any safety or caution around them at all is just so fucking short-sighted and so stupid. Because freedom of speech won't work if you can, if other people are using it as a weapon. Like, it just doesn't. And there are some reasonable limitations that, like, everybody even agrees on for freedom of speech, right? Like, nobody wants most people don't want child-born. Nobody likes spam. That's completely free speech, though, right? Like, if I were to say tomorrow 4 million companies open up in the United States and we're able to flood every single mailbox, email inbox, Facebook messaging, Instagram messaging, every single thing with a million different spam messages, would you be okay with that? Everybody would say no. Well, why? That's freedom of speech. Americans just aren't capable of critically analyzing that free speech right and thinking, okay, well, something is clearly not working here. How can we change this so that we can not destroy our country? And another thing also that is so frustrating is what people don't understand is that when the freedom of speech is hijacked and abused by other people, okay, you're actually losing on your freedom of speech. You're losing on your ability to speak freely because now the environment is so flooded with so many bad actors. Like, the whole point of freedom of speech is the idea that you should be able to voice, one of the big reasons is you should be able to voice discontent with the government. You should be able to say things and you should be able to criticize your government and not have any fear of government retribution. For instance, having a president writing executive orders at you to target your law firm because you were doing your job. Or, for instance, working for a company that's now being sued by the President of the United States because you released a poll that he didn't like. So when these types of things are happening, and then half the people are using their freedom of speech to defend it, well, what the fuck? Where is our freedom of speech now, right? It doesn't, at this point, it's not working. We're losing our freedom of speech because of the way that people are exercising it. You have to have some kind of balance here, but why is freedom of speech so uniquely misunderstood in America? Well, I think we broke off from the UK, we broke off from the United Kingdom, and then from that point forward, well, I shouldn't say from that point forward, from my lifetime forward, and probably it feels like for a lot of American history, there's the USA, and then there's Europe, and Europe is just one big thing. I was probably, I'm being totally honest, 15 or 16 years old when I first learned that there was another democracy in the world besides the USA. I grew up thinking the US was the only democracy. I thought that all of Europe was socialist. Maybe that's because I grew up in a Cuban household with my mom, or because I grew up as a super Republican in a Republican household. But I thought that America was the only democracy in the world, because you hear that so often. Like, America is the freest country, the only free country on the planet. You hear that so often. I don't know how common of a thought that is amongst older Republican, Cold War era Republicans.
Or aliens.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, yeah. So when you have this thought that we have the most unique freedom of speech in the entire fucking world, yeah, you just have stupid thoughts about it. It's fucking stupid. Yeah.
On Canada and Mexico, and then we sort of reversed out of some of that.
Yeah.
Where are we going to be in 90 days?
The second quarter will be over.
We will have tariffs on somebody.
Yeah.
Tariffs are moving higher, incrementally higher, which is eroding the profitability outlook for the S&P 500. How much it erodes it is now the question mark. How much does it erode the economic outlook? How much does this create really difficult conditions for the Fed to try to ease? Because in the short run, we will have inflation. We know this. Consumers are already pulling forward purchases.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that we're going to have inflation, and growth is probably going to look kind of okay. But companies can't plan on that into perpetuity. They can't plan on stability. And until they can plan on stability, it is growth eroding.
Two things, and you mentioned the Fed in those minutes, and Mike mentioned this, that the Fed said it may face difficult trade-offs if inflation is more persistent, and this is something we've talked about, especially if it's a slower growth environment or a recession. You mentioned, though, earlier, the connection between tariffs and U.S. debt, right? We've all been watching the U.S. Treasury trade, and the auctions today, which the auction today seemed to have gone well. Explain that connection and
Sure.
why that's such an important one.
Yeah, so companies that export a tremendous amount into the United States need some place to put the earnings from the exports. The countries that have tremendous exports, that ultimately drives demand for dollars in U.S. Treasuries. So to the degree that we are going to cut off the trade, we are going to say we no longer want your imports, they no longer have a reason to buy U.S. Treasuries, U.S. dollars. So it just removes that source of support, that source of demand. It doesn't mean you can't find it elsewhere. You can find it domestically, you can find it in other trade partners, but it's incredibly complicated.
Can you describe what you think free speech is for a second? Because it sounds like you're representing it, or it doesn't sound like you're representing it accurately as a concept. It's the idea that you should be able to have a thought, give an opinion about something without fear that the government is going to criminalize something on some ideological line, basically. The government can't criminalize you for having a certain religion or for saying a certain thing that might be critical of something especially related to the government, but that the government can't criminalize these activities.
If we move to an environment where we're not an importer of goods, the need for U.S. dollars, U.S. financial assets is more limited, right? And
Sorry, fuck. I've been pausing and answering chat so much. Fuck, yes, she's bringing up my thing here. The idea that the U.S. she's saying in a more specific sense, she's talking about the power of the dollar, but she's bringing up this argument that the United States is able to be crazy with tariffs and have all this sway on world markets because of the fact that we are a net importer of goods. We import so much, so many markets are reliant on us. Trump is trying to say that everybody wants to make a deal with us because we're a net importer, but he wants to use that to destroy our net importing. So people aren't going to be as reliant on us. So the market that Trump is trying to sell, Trump is creating a new market and he's trying to sell access to it by promising the old market. That doesn't work. It's fucking retarded. Yeah.
dollars. So it just removes that source of support, that source of demand. It doesn't mean you can't find it elsewhere. You can find it domestically, you can find it in other trade partners, but it's incredibly complicated. If we move to an
over here for?
an importer of goods, the need for U.S. dollars, U.S. financial assets is more limited, right? And I think that we're going to have to work through those dynamics. We've already seen this occurring with China over the last 10 years. They've reduced the degree to which they own U.S. Treasuries. They've shortened the duration of their ownership of U.S. Treasuries. As they've pulled back from trading with the United States, China's dependence on the U.S. is much, much lower today than it was 10 years ago. They recognize that the U.S. is pushing back against them and has reacted accordingly.
Actually, Destiny, in a debate with White Nervosa circa 2019-ish, you said that Americans have the God-given right to march up and down the street with Nazi flags if it's only speech. Has your opinion changed on that? No, my opinion has not changed. None of my criticisms of freedom of speech have had anything to do with hate or hateful ideology. My issue is, and I think I've been on this topic for like 4 or 5 years, for quite a while, my issue is people that lie, that lie and use their free speech to just tell fucking lies. If 65% of America wanted to become Nazis and we started voting like that, then fine, fuck it, then we're a Nazi country. But I don't want there to be a huge group of Americans that are persuaded by just open, blatant lies.
That through. What are the implications of that?
Yeah, the implications are if we can't find another buyer, we can't find...
Okay, that's perfect. So why do you keep bringing up examples like child porn and conflating that with European regs that criminalize opinion or offense, or do you not think you're doing that? Child porn is a type of expression. In your American brain, you're just thinking, well, child porn, hold on, that's something way different. That has nothing to do with freedom of speech because in America, it's illegal. This is the problem with every single American that wants to criticize the freedom of speech in Europe is you have these things in America that we all agree are illegal or should be illegal. I think largely child porn falls under a category of things I think we call obscenity, or it might be its own unique thing, but obscene things in the United States are not protected by the First Amendment. So you think, oh, well, we have all freedom of speech here. And someone goes, what about child porn? Well, that's not speech. What are you talking about? Okay, but then if I were to show you a country where they say, we've banned all porn, my guess is your American brain would go, you've banned porn? Wow, how anti-free speech of you. You're not even going to defend the right to have pornography? So for some reason in your brain, the things in America that we've outlawed, that are speech, that are forms of expression, that are creations of expressive things, the things that are illegal, you go, that's not freedom of speech. And then the things that are illegal, you go, are necessary elements of freedom of speech. And then if anybody has any different thought on it, you're like, they're anti-free speech because they don't have the exact same lines that we've drawn. It's so dumb. Sorry. I'm not saying that you believe all that necessarily, but I love you.
Has reacted accordingly.
Carry that through. What are the implications of that?
Yeah, the implications are if we can't find another buyer, we can't find more demand for U.S. Treasuries. U.S. yields ultimately end up higher. U.S. borrowing costs are higher. The cost of, levering up to grow.
Short, fat, or taco. You didn't make me angry. I love you, buddy. Okay. How many people in MAGA do you think are actively lying, saying things in our false, frustrating, believing wrong and retarded stuff? For the content creator people, like 95% of them. The Dominion lawsuit from Fox, you know, right? Because you did your J6 video, right? The Dominion lawsuit from Fox showed that they were knowingly lying. Tim Pool's past statements on Ukraine when he was there on the ground shows that he is knowingly lying. all of the people copying the exact same talking points are knowingly lying. People like Jack Posobiec, who are paid Russian stooges, people like Tulsi Gabbard, these people are knowingly lying.
In the U.S. is higher. The hope is that this doesn't happen. We can rebalance, right? We can also rebalance the U.S. fiscal situation, which is another leg on this overall scheme. But you know, in the near term, it means we've got to find a new buyer for U.S. debt if we're going to reduce the demand, effectively force reduction in the demand for those securities and U.S. dollars through trade policy.
No, not at all. Child porn isn't just an opinion or offensive expression. That's why lolly shit is legal. It's illegal because of the actual harm it can be traced to. Oh, so you're telling me that if I can demonstrate there is a harm that can be traced to some form of expression, that expression can be made illegal? I don't think you understand that you are on a coefficient of friction is 0 slope right now in terms of slipperiness. Is that the lowest you can be for friction? You are on a frictionless slope. You are sliding so quickly down the slope.
Scusi.
In a vacuum at max speed immediately.
Gina, before we let you go, you've shared with us your concerns a lot over the last week. And I'm wondering if you're more concerned, less concerned, or unchanged, given the move that we saw today in the news from the White House, than you were when you walked into the office this morning.
It's very, very early. I'm fairly unchanged. I'm still very concerned about the signal effect.
Also, real quick, I'm so sorry. Hold on. I'm not roasting you. I'm so sorry. Listen, I'm not trying to shit on you for whatever opinions you might have about freedom of speech. I'm just saying that I wish that Americans would take a moment to consider that when you're attacking Europeans for freedom of speech, what you're really attacking them on is that they've drawn their line somewhere different than you have. Because people in Germany, for instance, would say that people exercising this really offensive, derogatory, attacking type of speech is actually inhibiting other people's speech. There is an element of truth to that. In the United States, we even acknowledge that, right? Like, you can't just weaponize the courts to sue anybody that you want. That's why we have anti-SLAPP stuff. Shouldn't I be able to sue anybody for any reason I want? Why would there be a chilling effect on me suing somebody for a bullshit reason? Well, because when you sue people, that creates a chilling effect. Freedom of speech is not a binary principle. Freedom of speech is a massively granular thing that has to take into consideration so many different countervailing forces to balance it on this precarious, nice edge. It's incredibly difficult to do. It's not an easy all freedom of speech should be allowed and free speech should be illegal and that's perfect and boom and we're done. It just doesn't work that way. That's not the optimal environment.
It's very, very early. I'm fairly unchanged. I'm still very concerned about the signal effect. I'm very concerned about this such volatility in signaling to the international investment community about the sustainable investment aspect of the U.S. economy and the U.S. financial markets. The dependency on a single person decision making is, I think, disturbing to the international investment community. We have no understanding of where we're going for the next 30 days. We're just supposed to trust that it's going to be better. I think that's really tough for decision making, for investing in portfolios. Long term, equity investment is about investing in the companies, but the companies are being battered around by policymakers at this moment in time, and that creates a lot of distortions. So I'd say I'm kind of neutral with where I was this morning, still concerned about downside risks, still hopeful that companies will find their way through and navigate their way through the turmoil. Still looking for opportunities to emerge in global equities as they do. Certainly we've seen gigantic movements to the downside, and especially some global equity markets that are not as overpriced as the U.S. equity market is. And so there still are a number of opportunities that are emerging, but it's tough to see through a lot of these clouds right now.
And the risk is in 90 days, we could be where we were yesterday, essentially, right? Or how we started off the morning.
Yeah, I hope that's not the case, because it does seem that, we started off the morning assuming that this is our reality, and now we at least have some opportunities for maybe negotiations or some differences, or maybe not quite as much near-term spike in inflation and disruption in the economy. So net, hopefully this improves conditions, but it's a hope, and hope is not a strategy.
Good stuff. As always, Gina, thank you so much. So appreciate, Chief.
Why isn't Congress stopping Trump? These tariffs cannot possibly be legal. The Republicans need the will to act. If the Republicans don't have the will to act, then nothing will come from Congress. If the Republicans realize that they're fucked, or if any of them grow a fucking spine, although those Republicans and spines are just not there, then Congress can stop all of this basically immediately. Is burning the U.S. flag protected in America? This is going to age poorly, but I will say yes, it is. Now, will that always be the case? Who knows? The current president of the United States has expressed multiple times in the past that people that burn the American flag should have their citizenship revoked. So who knows how long it'll be like that, but...
She creates our equity strategy here for our Bloomberg Intelligence team in the U.S. market. So appreciate it. Gina Martin Adams, she's been pretty busy as of late and keeping us up to date on the markets. Gina, thank you so much. We're going to stay, though, with the markets, Tim.
I do want to bring in Bloomberg News senior editor Ed Harrison, who joins us from Washington, D.C. this afternoon. Ed, I'm just looking at the S&P 500 up 7.8%, the NASDAQ Composite up 9.8%, the Dow up 6.6%. We were talking to Gina Martin Adams just now. Days like today do not come around often when you're looking at the history of single-day moves in U.S. equity markets.
Name one Democrat that would have the spine to go against Biden. I'm just curious. I mean, Pelosi, Obama, how many people came out against Biden after that one debate against Trump? The entire party came out against Biden so hard that he literally had to quit the re-election campaign and nominate Kamala instead. When Biden was in office, he was constantly getting blocked by the entire Democratic Party. They would argue were being held hostage by Manchin and Sinema in the Senate. What are you talking about? What a horrible example to try to get me on. What are you talking about?
Markets. Your immediate reaction to the moves that we're seeing right now?
My immediate reaction is fairly similar to what Gina was saying, Tim, and that is that nothing's really changed dramatically. In fact, if you think about what the market expected before Liberation Day a week ago, they expected...
I have heard this objection before. How do you decide what is a lie? If the government does, isn't that risky? Because Trump thinks anything bad against him is a lie. I mean, I don't know, you create a body to try to figure out how to do this where both sides can nominate parties. People say stuff like this. You'll say, who's to determine whether or not it's a lie? Isn't it risky? Therefore, let's do nothing. But the problem is if you can, on the path that we're on, we're already not doing this. Something is already like fundamentally broken with the United States. Like we're not figuring it out right now. So. Also, if my stream is lagging, kick.com/destiny. It doesn't lag there, okay? I actually don't know why my YouTube connection is lagging right now. But it definitely is lagging right now. Like the bandwidth is dropping. But I don't know if it's on my end or YouTube's end. But the fact that my kick stream is not lagging at all makes it look like it's on YouTube's end. Clean the TV screen in your studio. Wait, how? It's super dirty. But how could you tell? I thought you couldn't tell when there's something on. Oh, because of that picture I tweeted? I bought a cleaner for it, though, so I'm cleaning that all off tonight.
We're effectively in a trade war, the U.S. with China. And so all of the downside risks there in terms of growth are still available. All of the upside risks to inflation are still there. And the uncertainty that creates basically means that there's no reason to invest for companies over the near term. So all the things that are keeping the economy weighed down.
Don't clean that screen. It is a matte surface. I'm pretty sure I can use a gentle...
Those with Robinhood Gold can enjoy a 3% IRA match. Tremendous.
Window cleaner. It's not like I'm using some fucking chemical solvent or some crazy shit.
Are going to continue to be weighed down even after this. So we've just had a relief rally, but ultimately the economic paradigm is effectively the same.
I mean, the economic paradigm, right, Ed, doesn't...
Don't use any chemicals? What? I've used this multiple times. It's fine. What is this? It's called Screen Mom. Natural Screen Cleaner. Ingredients: water, plant-based cleaning agents, preservative. Contains at least 99% natural ingredients. Odor-free, streak-free, ammonia-free, alcohol-free, phosphate-free, and anti-static. I'm going to spray so much of it on that monitor downstairs.
Doesn't change unless President Trump says, roll back, we figured it out with China, happy trade, everybody. Let's go back and forth to kind of where it was, we've worked it out, and we're going to leave it there. And I promise, for 4 years.
I promise. Wait, Trump is speaking now? He loves the attention that he's getting right now, too. He loves it, he loves it, he loves it.
Thank you very much. All of you, thank you very much. I wouldn't ride in that thing if you paid. How fast will that go?
240 plus.
240? Yeah. That's unbelievable.
Oh, we're doing more car commercials?
Two-time winner of the Indianapolis 500. Consecutively, right?
Yes, sir.
So what the hell are you doing? What do you eat?
A lot of milk. Drinking a lot of milk, hopefully.
Okay, I'm going to take some. And that one is pure speed and endurance, right?
Correct, sir.
Speed and endurance. Is that car a very different car than let's say this one, very different.
Very different.
Very different.
Yeah.
Made for.
You gotta last so many hours.
Right.
And we all share the car, so three drivers.
Totally different engine.
Different engine.
Everything.
Wow, different engine.
And you go, is it 24 hours?
Yeah.
That's a long time. And that car just, there's no let up, it's just constant, right?
Wow.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. That's endurance.
That's
endurance
crazy.
is a big factor in life and success, I can tell you. So you guys have it.
The expert
well, thank
race
you very
car.
much. Would you like to ask Roger or any of these champions any questions while we're here? Yeah.
You started the morning saying be cool.
Damn it.
Just a few hours later,
Be cool.
there was a pause put in on the tariffs. Can you walk us?
Can you elaborate on the no free cloud policy? I enjoyed the ARC stream last night, but does promoting that stream not count as free cloud? Please, no free cloud doesn't mean I'm not ever collaborating with anybody ever again. I'm just always treating everybody like they're gonna backstab me eventually. Okay, so ARC, he's on a timer. I know. He's young. He's a drama cover. Okay, he's gonna backstab me eventually, so that's fine. Okay.
Through your thinking about why you decided to put a 90-day pause.
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions, because we have a big job to do. No other president would have done what I did. No other president. I know the presidents. They wouldn't have done it. And it had to be done. What was happening to us on trade, not only with, if you look at it, not only with China, but China was by far the biggest abuser in history, and others also, but somebody had to do it. They had to stop because it was not sustainable. Last year, China made $1 trillion off trade with the United States. That's
wow.
not right. And now I've reversed it. It's for a short period of time, but we made $2 billion. We're making now $2 billion a day. And somebody had to do it. Roger actually said it. Charles Schwab was here a little while ago, one of the great financial people, and he said he's been waiting for 40 years for somebody to do what I did over the last month. And if you didn't do it, you wouldn't have a country. It wouldn't be sustainable. So I'm honored to have done it. And, look, nothing's over yet, but we have a tremendous amount of spirit from other countries, including China. China wants to make a deal. They just don't know how quite to go about it. It's one of those things they don't know quite. They're proud people. And President Xi's a proud man. I know him very well, and they don't know quite how to go about it, but they'll figure it out. They're in the process of figuring it out, but they want to make a deal. And we have many other countries, as you know, many more than 75, and they all want to come, and they want to come here, or they'll go to Commerce, or they'll go to Treasury. We have our great senators here and congressmen. They'll call John. They'll do somebody. They'll go through somebody, but they're all calling. How do we do this? They all want to make a deal.
Oh, they're fucking calling on the phone. Oh, they're calling.
Somebody had to do what we did, and I did a 90-day pause for the people that didn't retaliate, because I told them if you retaliate, we're going to double it. And that's what I did with China, because they did retaliate.
So the EU is announcing tariffs, right? Didn't they agree on some? But so shouldn't we also keep tariffing the EU? Or
so we'll see how it all works out. I think it's going to work out amazing. I think that our country is going to be at the end of a year or shorter, but I think we're going to have something that nobody would have dreamt possible.
Yeah, that's true.
A man like Roger Penske, I don't want to get him in trouble with China, so I won't, but he would know that someday you have to cut the bow and you have to do what you have to do, right, Roger? And that's what I did, and I'm very happy to have done it.
Mr. President, the Prime Minister of Greece just told Breitbart's Matt Boyle that he thinks absolutely the European Union and the United States could work out a trade deal that's win-win and quote, mutually beneficial to both sides. What do you think about the Prime Minister's comments, and do you think a deal could be struck with the European Union?
First of all, I know him. He's a good man, and I appreciate his comments. Yeah, a deal could be made with every one of them. A deal's going to be made with China. A deal's going to be made with every one of them. And there'll be fair deals. I just want fair. There will be fair deals for everybody. But they weren't fair to the United States.
He just wants fair
they
deals,
were sucking
guys.
us dry. And
why are you guys so against
you can't
fairness?
do that. We have $36 trillion of debt for a reason. We don't have it there for fun. They have it for a reason. And people took advantage of our country, and they ripped us off for decades. I've been thinking about this for decades. If you ever saw me on television, I was young like these guys. And it was a good old days, I'll tell you, Roger. But I was like these guys, young, and I was talking about it. Nothing changed, and nothing was done about it. Then I did it. In my first term, I did it, and did it well. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China and others, and I started the process, but then we had to fix up from the COVID.
Can you explain what you meant about your Secret Service tweet? Yes, currency manipulation or currency forgery is actually regulating that or enforcing that is in the purview of the Secret Service. And Trump keeps saying that like China's manipulating currency or whatever. If anybody's forging US dollars or anything like that, then somebody in the Secret Service needs to step up and do their duty and protect us from that.
As caused by China. We had to fix up from that, and we did a good job of doing it. And when we handed back the reins after a rigged election, and when we handed back the reins, the stock market was higher than it was before COVID coming in.
Wow.
So, you know, we did a great job, but we didn't have time to do the big thing, which
what
we're
was the
doing
big
now.
thing? Okay.
And it's, you know, it's like a patient is sick. You have to do surgery. Patient is very, very sick.
Surgery, medicine.
And,
Okay.
Joe Biden handed us over a country that was in very serious trouble, economically and in every other way. They let China run away with things. They let other countries run
And
away with
Biden.
things. And maybe worst of all, in a certain way, is what they did at the border. We had people pouring into our country by the millions.
Unbelievable.
Many of them were murderers and drug lords and thieves and people from prisons from all over the world. And they were people from mental institutions, insane asylums.
Yeah.
They
All
were
those asylum
they were
seekers.
taking their mentally insane, and they were dumping them into our country. And I'll tell you, Tom Homan and Kristi Noem are doing a fantastic job in removing them. And now the courts, the Supreme Court just gave us numerous good rulings where we have to be able to get them out. You had other judges trying to take over the system. And think of it, they take over. They want these people coming back. Tren de Aragua from Venezuela, the Venezuela jails that cut off the fingers of a man.
Wow. I don't know. Sorry, fuck. I get frustrated when I'm saying things that I feel like should be obvious, but that I've said like a million times. But I'll ask one more time. Do conservatives not hear him repeat the exact same talking points over and over and over again and get just a little bit cringed or a little bit embarrassed that he repeats these exact same talking points?
In Colorado, they cut off his fingers because he called the police looking for help. They said, "Did you call the police?" He said, "Yes, I did." Put your hand down, and they cut off the fingers. This is what they want to bring these people back.
Destiny, stop talking. I love this speech. It gets better every time. My bad.
No. And I want to thank the president of El Salvador for the job he's done, because that's the way it has to be done. It's too bad. Yeah, please.
Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, they've been talking about tariffs for decades. How come when these Democrat elites want tariffs, everything's hunky-dory, but when President Trump wants tariffs, all hell breaks loose? Do you see this double standard?
What is this guy's name? I love oh, is he about to say, I love this guy. I love this guy.
How come when these Democrat elites want tariffs, everything's hunky-dory, but when President Trump wants tariffs, all hell breaks loose? Do you see this double standard?
I love this guy. Whoever the hell that is. That's really nice. I appreciate that question.
Give this guy a
Chuck Schumer and
raise.
Nancy Pelosi, everybody knew you had to do it, but they never had the guts to do it. It does take guts. It even takes guts for our country to go through it. That's why I say be cool. They were saying about, just be cool. It's going to work out. It's going to work out, and it's working out. I can tell you, working out maybe faster than I thought. But I said it's going to take a little conditioning. It's a transition to. It's really, I think it's a transition to greatness. It's going to be greatness. Our country's going to be. There'll be nothing like it. And people investing in our country, they're going to do better than they've ever done before. We have more car manufacturers, Roger, coming into our country now. Speaking of cars, we've never seen anything like it. And they're coming in because of the election, but they're coming in because of the tariffs. Because they don't want to pay 25 or 50 or whatever it may be. They don't want to pay that. They can't pay that. We had 3 cancellations in Mexico, building a plant. They're all coming into the United States. Canada, they're coming in. From China, they're coming in from everywhere. And that's just cars. We have chip makers coming. We're the biggest chip maker in the world from Taiwan, coming in, spending $3 billion to build plants. And a big.
I heard somebody just canceled or put on hold. Was it Microsoft, $1 billion plant because of uncertainties?
Mostly a big plant. This is a hell of a plant when you spend the kind of money that they're going to go $200 to $300 billion, not million. You know, you'd say million would be the right number. It's not $200 to $300 billion. $1 billion. Think of that. 300 billion.
Wait. Are these names automatic? Why is my train station called Retarded Hair?
$1 billion. If you look at Apple is going to spend $500 billion building a plant. They wouldn't be doing that if I didn't do this. They'd just keep building them in China. And that's unsustainable. It's not a pleasant thing to do, but I appreciate the question. And, you know, interestingly, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, Crazy Nancy, they've wanted to do this for years, but they never had a president that had the guts to do it, because it does take guts, believe me.
The bond markets that persuaded you to reverse course?
I was watching the bond market. The bond market is very tricky. I was watching it, but if you look at it now, it's beautiful. The bond market right now is beautiful.
It's beautiful.
But yeah, I saw last night where people were getting a little queasy. I think everything had. Well, the big move wasn't what I did today. The big move was what I did on Liberation Day. We had Liberation Day in America. We're liberated from all of the horrible deals that were made, all of the horrible trade deals that were made. And I was helped by people just like this, senator, congressman, and friends, right? And We had great help in the Senate. Our Republican senators have been amazing. They stood tall. And likewise in the House. And John Thune has done an amazing job. Barrasso has done an amazing job. I can't think of a senator, really. We had tremendous support. We got a bill passed the other day with almost unanimous support in the Senate. And I think we're going to get that in the House, too. And I have to tell you that Mike Johnson is a great speaker. He's done a fantastic job. We had a majority of 1. Now we have a majority of 7. And you don't realize how big 7 is until you have a majority of 1. 7 sounds like so much. But we're doing well. But Mike Johnson and John Thune have done a really great job.
Influenced your decision? Did you speak with anyone? Jamie Dimon? Did you speak with anyone?
Well, I watched Jamie Dimon on Maria Bartiromo.
Why? What's up?
Romer show this morning, and he was very good. He said that actually made the statement to effect that something had to be done with the tariffs and trade. He said that. He said, look, at some point, but he...
Hi, hey, what's up? Hello? Oh, my mic is not working. Why voice? Oh, I know why it's not. Test, test. Testing, 1, 2, test, test.
Hello. Can you
Okay,
hear me?
hi, what's up?
I have a problem with my setup for some reason. I can't hear people.
Oh.
It's good that I can hear you now. But hello. I just wanted to drop by, say hi, and also do selfish self promotion.
Yeah,
what's the
up?
phrase?
What are we promoting?
Promoting my fundraiser, but that's gonna be a little bit later. But it's been things happened since we talked. You tariffed almost everyone, including penguins and Ukraine, but not Russia. You now want to, instead of buying cheap shirts from Cambodia, you want to be Cambodia. So what else? What have I missed?
Listen, I don't know what you want. I don't know what you want from me, okay? We're just very confused right now.
Confused is one word for it. I do want your expertise though on Americans because you're my expert, obviously, right? So I saw a lot of messages from Americans being like, "Why the fuck? Like Europe is freeloading and duping us and being like bad and evil because we buy food from them and cars from them, but they don't buy cars and food from us." And one of your officials said that all the streets in America are full of European and Japanese cars, but our streets are not full with American cars. Listen, I'm not an economist. I will not claim I am, but did they not know?
Did I build this forge? Oh, I need a dragon tooth. Where the fuck do I get a dragon tooth?
Expensive to import, and you have German cars, and everyone likes those because they're efficient and cheaper, and Japanese cars and all that. And also, your food is not imported because it's very chemically and doesn't even pass.
Use undiggable terrain to summon a ring of treasure spots.
Basically important arsenic.
Didn't I?
Is it news? And why it's our fault?
Some kind of other.
So you're buying our stuff.
Yeah, I think so. The issue is that there's so many different things that are going on here, but on a very, very, very broad level.
What the hell did I get?
This one guy who made this book called Bullshit Jobs. No, I'm just kidding. Half kidding. Yeah, there's a lot of different there's different. Fuck, it's hard to identify the source of this. Here's a broad thing that a lot of Americans believe. It's just hard for. I don't know where this comes from. Or there's a lot of different reasons why.
What the fuck?
Liberals, conservatives live in different areas. They have different levels of education, different jobs, etc. Okay. For some reason, right now, a big part of the conservative ethos in the United States is that there are real jobs, okay? And real jobs are when you're making things with your hands. And those are real jobs, and those are tough men with big muscles and traditional wives that have lots of kids. And these are men that drink beer with their friends, and they don't like, Bud Light because of Mulvaney and trans people and all that, and these are cool guys. And then on the other half of America, you have these soy-weak, white-collar workers that do fake jobs. Yeah, they have they do software, and they make AI, and it's fake stuff, and it's on the internet, and it's not real, and you can't build with it, and you can't put your hands on it. And so a lot of conservatives buy into this thought, and now we're kind of seeing, there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on, but now we're seeing one of the final evolutions of that, where conservatives are thinking like, yeah, I think we should be manufacturing fucking Cambodian and Vietnamese clothes in America, actually, and that would be awesome and based. And that's, that's one current that's running right now.
Awesome and based!
That is, yeah.
But you're literally rich. You're like rich because you don't do that shit.
We don't talk.
Like
we don't talk about that. Yeah.
Us poor fucks do that for you because you can buy our labor cheap as fuck. And how much money do you want to pay the Americans to make the fucking shirts? Definitely not the money you pay to Cambodia and Vietnam. Like, it's gonna be like expensive as shit.
Yeah, this is obviously this is one of my go-to arguments, but it's very obvious not to attack any other country on the planet for what they do, but like it's just funny that a conservative American will look at like the United States and then they'll look at like Vietnam and Cambodia and they're like, yeah, those countries have been taking advantage of us for a long time. Like if you compare the US to all the countries that are supposedly taking advantage of us, like what country do you want to be more like? Do you want to be like Thailand or Cambodia or the McDonald Island with the penguins? Like, how are these people taking advantage of us? It seems like we've gotten a pretty sweet deal, but Americans are also convinced that like we're the most oppressed people, that we've been like so destroyed and everything is unaffordable and we can't live real lives. And like, yeah, Americans think that they are the most, unironically, conservative Americans have turned into like the progressive woke scolds who think that like everything is oppression from 10 years ago.
Yeah,
except they're thinking about Americans.
I noticed.
Yeah.
They're like they're the whiniest motherfuckers. Even like the most like gender fluid bender. I'm a dear person is less whiny than that shit. Like, come on. Like, also it's kind of dangerous because that's kind of the rhetoric that Russians use and Germans used in Nazi Germany. We are the most oppressed. Everyone, fucks us over. But at least Germany had excuse to actually be fucked over and having a pretty bad time. But
yeah, people are basically
States,
the thought in America right now is like kind of like post World War I Germany, except we haven't actually been fucked over by anything. Yeah, so it's really weird. Yeah.
I hear it and I'm like, I must be exaggerating. And then I hear like everyone fucks us over, they use us, and we are being like abused by every single country. And you're like, you're the richest motherfuckers on earth. If that's abuse, then give me that. I don't mind that sort of abuse, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Penguins might have fucked you over though. I don't know. Like I don't know what's going on there. But in terms of like actual like, also, will Americans want to? Like, why the fuck would you want to, like, doing this, like, annoying ass laborious work that is, like, repetitive, boring as shit, and have 12-hour shifts on factories? Like, do you want that?
No, nobody here does, but nobody knows that nobody is really, just conservatives aren't known for thinking, okay? There's not really a lot of thought going on right now. Because they'll say on one hand that we're going to bring back good manufacturing jobs, but they're hearkening back to an era
Did I get a C?
that never existed. Like, housing is expensive right now. Housing is expensive everywhere in the world. Everybody's having problems with housing, except for like Japan. But Americans have tricked themselves into thinking, even most of my audience believes this, that like 40 or 50 years ago, every single family in America had one worker, a stay-at-home mom, and a house with a white picket fence, and could send 5 kids to school off of one way. Like, everybody thinks that that's what it used to be like. And then they look at like life today, and they're like, well, fuck, shit's expensive sometimes, and it's hard to find a good house and like a place that I really want that I can afford. And so everything must be fucked. So we need to go back to whatever the world was like 50 years ago. And 50 years ago, we were, hammering car doors into iron chassis or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I really like I don't have much time now this couple of weeks, but it's just I'm not saying you like Moscow obviously, but back in, for example, the Soviet Union days, right? There was like this thing that Moscow would be the place where the final product is produced. So the final thing, right?
This is your highest value add last stage of manufacturing. Yeah.
Yeah. The widgets and like pieces, little like details, little thingies, they would be produced in different countries like that were, basically subjugated by Russia in Soviet Union, like Ukraine, like Belarus, Armenia, Kazakhstan, whatever, right? Any country. And we, Georgia, we never had the final product. So the final product was always made in Russia, in Moscow proper, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying you don't have that because you don't have like other countries doing that for you, obviously, right? But in a way you kind of do, because yes, you don't own them and they are not part of your state, right? But they kind of do that for you. They produce things like the details, and then you have the whole thing. So you produce weaponry, technology, things like that are fucking bajillion times more expensive than fucking shirts.
Yeah, but the issue is Americans don't understand that last stage of value add. So like an American thinks right now, the average American on the left and right, unfortunately, thinks that they'll make fun of that. They'll go, we don't even make the cars here. We order all the pieces and we just put two things together in the United States. And then Americans think that's bad. They think that it's actually way more valuable to mine coal and mine steel and smelt. Yeah, but that's what the average American thinks, unfortunately. So on the left and right now, so we're pretty fucked.
That's literally why you're at the top of the food chain. That's how you get there.
Yeah, but Americans don't think that. Remember, we think that everybody else is taking advantage of us and is somehow doing way better than us and doing everything. It's, yeah.
Oh, well, I don't know. Like, it seems like it's a message that is well sold because people are buying it, apparently. Also, if you repeat the same thing fucking 100 times, it works, which, you know,
I repeat
proved,
it
I guess.
often enough becomes the truth.
Yeah. But I also noticed that you're now doing the it's not the Tsar's fault, it's Boyare, which is like a meme basically in Russia. It's when you say something's going bad in the country, you blame the people around Tsar, but not Tsar himself, which has been done with like Putin for a very long time. And I do think like now it's super duper visible that happens with Trump because people like are annoyed at some things, obviously, even like right wingers and MAGAs, but it still stays not like Trump's fault. It's like someone else's fuck up. If they even acknowledge the fuck up, because with Signal thing they definitely did not acknowledge the fuck up. I like how Russia joked that they want to in on their chat of they want to be added in chat about Ukraine. Which I mean, honestly though, maybe they will add Lavrov on the next chat about some operations. Who knows? Honestly. Yeah. Will there be any like? Do you think anything for that? Like
for
nothing
Signal?
will happen? Yeah.
No, that's done.
Well.
In a survey of 1,000 Americans, half have less than $500 in savings. With Self, 1+ million are building credit and savings.
It's to be expected. Like, why should anything happen if you surround yourself with people who are your sycophants that are going to be doing the investigation with keeping in mind that they are your sycophants? Obviously.
Well, yeah. I mean, the problem isn't it's not them. The problem is that Americans still, enough of them support it that's what basically makes it okay. So we, unfortunately, in Russia at least, you guys can blame, or you guys could blame it as part of the Soviet Union that, you know, the Russian president or the Tsar, whatever the fuck, controls everything. But in the United States, this is democratically, we're destroying us all and around. So.
Yeah, but I mean, you can get there. You can get to the kin stage at some point. Obviously, anyone can. Which I mean, I said that before, and I think I am correct, but people like disagree with me, obviously. But I do think like many people unironically like thought that never asked that sort of thing cannot happen anywhere. But I always said that there was nothing particularly unique like in fascism, like of Italy, Nazi. Like it's unique to each country because it has, obviously cultural context. It happens in a little bit different way depending on the people, the values, the situation. Same with Russia. As much as I fucking hate them, obviously, I also cannot claim that there's something like it's not like it's nothing to do with fucking like genetics of them being Russian or anything like that. It has everything to do with ideology, culture, values, and how they shape the society essentially. And that can be anyone. And I think you are unfortunately proving it right now in the United States.
Yeah, but well, that's true. The issue is that I think that the internet has changed things a lot, and that you can do propaganda so much better than you ever could before.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Well, I know you could kind of do it in the past, but oh my god, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's much more effective, and unfortunately, like Russia knows that, and malicious actors like that definitely use it and abuse that, and I think they really fucked you with your free speech thing. Like, it's not bad as a concept, obviously, but I think it's really allowed. Everyone has the right to speak, and free speech and all of that really allowed them to go fucking all out. And also not only Russians, but also like your own like fascicants, like Vance, for example, and people like that, right?
Yeah.
I don't
Energy
know,
tonic.
Anyhow, sad news for all of us. By the way, a 50% increase in drone strikes since Trump's ceasefire thing. So we have been having a very difficult month, not only with missile strikes that killed like a fuck ton of children on the playground recently, but also just in general, like drone attacks are daily pretty much. And I think the increase have been calculated to be about 50%. So average attacks on were like 100 drones daily, something like that. And now it's 154. So pretty significant increase. And especially in Kharkiv, we have been blowing the fuck up like this entire amount.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Does it seem like it's ceasefiring to me?
Yeah, the ceasefire is indeed not ceasefiring.
Mm-hmm. Well, people on the front say like, obviously they didn't expect anything to change. They expect things to be worse, and they kind of are, obviously. A lot of people say that the rhetoric and policy of Trump administration and America in general now is emboldening Russia to attack more, which we see with numbers of missiles, drones, and all of that. And of course, cutting off like aid intelligence, all of that cannot be helpful to us, and they usually tend to try and use that to their advantage. For example, when there was this remember, I don't know if you remember, but there was like this long pause in aid because of Congress. Republicans were like Mike Johnson, people like that were cutting aid for not allowing it to pass through, and they really used and abused that time period to basically use glide bombs, a fuck ton of them on us endlessly, and also the limitation of long-range strikes as well. And I mean, I think we should not give a fuck, if I'm honest. Like, we should continue to strike the oil refinery and their energy, because that was very effective, and they obviously don't give a fuck. So what's the point of handicapping ourselves?
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree.
Yeah, I mean, I would obviously if they have like. Basically, a bunch of people on the front a couple of days ago said, like, if America had any like actual instruments to leverages, to actually ensure 100% that Russia will abide by it, or that at the very least they will have some sort of mechanism to ensure it, but they either don't have it or don't bother to use it. So then
the Tracy.
Yeah. Literally, like, it just makes our situation worse, and no benefits for us whatsoever in the entire thing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. What?
You know what? It didn't start with a big bang. It started with a metal pipette, and then 1,000 of them.
I don't know what the incentive would even be to cooperate with the United States or any requests. So, because you can even say for the UN, because apparently we don't believe in any international stuff anymore either. So, yeah.
I guess we are still trying to play the nice with America, because there's still hope, I guess, in our diplomats and politicians to not lose the entirety of the aid, which I think is a futile attempt. But I understand, like, obviously why they would do it as politicians. But politicians are not soldiers, so obviously soldiers have a different opinion. They really don't give a fuck about any of that shit. Yeah. Also, me and my friend Devin did a bunch of interviews and photos and things like that with 113 Brigade. They're territorial defense, so they're like all volunteers basically. So not mobilized, not like conscripted, but volunteers. And they shoot down drones is their job essentially, that fly towards Kharkiv. So quite literally saving our asses daily. And we brought up ceasefire and Trump to them, and like all of them gathered, like 10 people came
What,
up
the feed?
and like, I want to say something.
Oh my God.
Fuck Trump, fuck this, fuck that. Like all very angry. And we have then asked the commander, who is a very cool dude. He's a cyborg, so he was defending Donetsk airport since 2014 and been basically one of the legends who still are alive from that time. Very few of them are alive right now. So we spoke with him, and he also said like that basically he considers Trump to be an accomplice of Putin and a criminal, supporting a war criminal, killing people and all of that. And he said like just two frauds playing cards on our lives basically. And it was not allowed to publish that because a press officer came along And he was like, nothing you said about Trump you can publish. And I'm like, fuck, like I obviously want, you know, them to be, to speak truth and to publish that. And he was like, no, you can speak about anything. You can shit talk Zelensky, Putin, like any other leader essentially in the world, but not Trump. And I'm like, oh, and he's like, I agree with everything they said, by the way, personally, but it's my job to, you know, to not allow that. And like,
what do you give a reason or an excuse? Yeah.
Because I asked him, and he's like, he's a petty. People think he's a petty ass motherfucker that, you know, might hear something and just make a situation worse just out of pettiness, basically. So we should kind of treat him like a fucking toddler that can throw a tantrum, the tantrum that can sink us as a country. So we should not do it. And I'm like, that was so annoying.
Yeah.
Although I understand, obviously why, but not that they're wrong. With that assessment, but it's just it's not very free speechy, so to speak.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, what can you do? By the way, Lactoid guy who was like, oh, you can't say anything about Zelensky without getting, like, you know, killed, and you most definitely can. Like, anyone has the right to shit on Zelensky, but Trump apparently is out of reach of critique. And also Wick and Lactoid are gonna debate on Tim Pool. It's no longer a secret because he published it, Wick, so, you know, I can say it. And on Friday about Ukraine.
Boy. That'll be That'll be a debate. That'll be a conversation, yeah.
Oh boy, indeed. He actually messaged me a while about it, but, you know, should be like a...
Do you know when that goes? Wait, when does that happen?
Friday, I think. I can show you the date. He posted it week on his Twitter, I believe. But this Friday, I believe, in the morning, I think he said. But I have a date and everything. But it's just that, I'm just like worried and stuff. I'm like, I was a little bit of his, like, you know, Russian spy, I guess, that was helping him behind the scenes to prepare. But I am worried, obviously, because not because like I don't think Wick, you know.
Bye bye. See you next time.